The mahogany table gleamed under the chandelier as I sat at my childhood dining spot, watching steam rise from Mom's famous pot roast. Sunday dinners had become a monthly tradition since I bought my own place, but tonight felt different. Jake lounged across from me, that familiar smirk playing on his lips, while our parents exchanged knowing glances. Then he dropped the bomb. "So, Robin?" he announced, cutting through Dad's story about his golf game. "Mom and Dad said I'm moving into your house next month." The words hung in the air like a challenge. I carefully set down my sterling silver fork, meeting his triumphant gaze with unexpected calm. "That's funny," I replied, reaching for my phone, "because I sold it last week." His cocky grin crumbled as I pulled up the closing documents, holding the screen where everyone could see. The dining room erupted into chaos. 3 years ago, I had stood outside 947 Willowbrook Lane with tears streaming down my face. After working 70-hour weeks as a pediatric nurse surviving on ramen noodles and generic coffee, I had finally saved enough for the down payment on my dream Victorian home. The seller had called it a fixer-upper, but I saw pure potential in those original hardwood floors and crown molding. While my friends traveled to Cancun and bought designer handbags, I spent weekends stripping wallpaper and learning to tile bathrooms from YouTube videos. My brother Jake had laughed when I showed him the listing. "Why would you want that old dump?" he'd asked from his permanent spot on our parents' leather sectional. At 35, he still occupied his childhood bedroom, surrounded by participation trophies and abandoned business plans. His entrepreneurial ventures read like a comedy of errors: the food truck that never got permits, the cryptocurrency scheme that vanished overnight, the fitness app that never made it past the logo design phase. Each failure came with the same script, where Jake played the victim of circumstances while our parents wrote another check. The house became my sanctuary. I refinished the oak staircase by hand, painted each room with colors that made my soul sing, and planted a garden that attracted butterflies in summer. My spare bedroom served as a craft room where I made blankets for the NICU babies at work. Life felt perfectly balanced between my rewarding career and peaceful home. Everything shifted 6 months ago during Mom's birthday dinner. She had mentioned needing someone to check on the house while they visited Aunt Patricia in Phoenix. "I'll do it," I offered, happy to help. Dad cleared his throat awkwardly. "Actually, we already gave Jake a spare key, for emergencies." The words triggered an uncomfortable flutter in my stomach, but I pushed it aside. Family helped family after all. 2 weeks later, I came home from a particularly brutal night shift to find a red Solo cup on my kitchen counter. Strange, considering I didn't own any. The throw pillow on my couch faced the wrong direction. An unfamiliar phone charger lay coiled beside my television. My sanctuary suddenly felt violated, but I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Maybe I had forgotten about buying cups. Perhaps I had moved the pillow while half asleep. Doubt plagued me for weeks until I made a decision that changed everything. The security system installation took less than a day, complete with cameras that sent feeds directly to my phone. I told no one, especially not my family. The first night, nothing happened. The second night brought only a stray cat across my porch. By the third night, I had almost forgotten about my surveillance. Then my phone buzzed during my Thursday overnight shift. Motion detected in living room. My hands shook as I opened the app, expecting a burglar or worse. Instead, Jake's face filled the screen as he unlocked my front door with practiced ease. Behind him, 4 people I'd never seen before carried cases of beer and boxes of pizza. "Welcome to Casa Jake," he announced to his guests, spreading his arms wide in my living room. "My sister's at work, so we've got the place to ourselves." I watched in stunned silence as strangers sprawled across my furniture, spilling drinks on my hand-sewn cushions. Someone used my grandmother's quilt as a napkin. Jake gave tours like a prideful homeowner, even showing off my bedroom. "This'll be my office once I officially move in," he told a blonde woman who giggled at everything he said. "Family takes care of family. Robin won't admit it, but she needs someone here. Place is too big for one person." The party lasted until 3 in the morning. They left my home in chaos, dishes piled in the sink, mysterious stains on my carpet, cigarette butts and my potted ferns, despite my no-smoking rule. Jake locked up carefully, even adjusting the pillows to look undisturbed. He had done this before, many times. I spent my lunch break in my car scrolling through weeks of footage I had ignored. The pattern emerged clearly. Every Tuesday and Thursday when I worked nights, Jake transformed my sanctuary into his personal clubhouse. The violations went deeper than parties. He had photographed my mail, rummaged through my filing cabinet, and even brought dates to my bedroom. In one video, he pointed to my family photos. "Yeah, Robin's always been the uptight one," he told his friend. "Good thing our parents see through her act. They know I deserve this place more." My coffee turned cold as rage replaced shock. This wasn't about emergency access or family support. Jake had been marking territory in my home like an animal establishing presence for some larger plan. The puzzle pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. His sudden interest in my work schedule, his questions about my mortgage payments, his jokes about being my future roommate that didn't sound like jokes anymore. I returned to work that night with new resolve. Jake wanted to play games with my home. He had no idea what kind of player he had awakened. As I administered medications and comforted sick children, my mind spun with possibilities. The 12-hour shift flew by as I formulated plans between patient rounds. When morning came, I drove past my violated sanctuary without stopping. Instead, I parked outside the one person who could help me understand the full scope of Jake's intentions. My best friend Sarah had been the real estate agent who helped me find my dream home. If anyone could interpret Jake's behavior, she could. "Morning coffee?" I asked when she answered her door in pajamas. "Robin, it's 6:30. She yawned, then noticed my expression. "What happened?" Over Colombian dark roast and grocery store donuts, I showed her the security footage. Her face transformed from confusion to horror to professional concern. "How long has this been happening?" "At least 2 months based on the footage." Sarah set down her mug with deliberate calm. "I need to tell you something. Last week, Jake called my office. He wanted to know about tenant rights and adverse possession laws. I thought he was asking for a friend." The donut turned to ash in my mouth. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing useful, but Robin, he was specifically interested in how long someone needs to live somewhere before claiming residency. He asked about family members forcing property sales for equal distribution. These weren't casual questions. My Victorian sanctuary wasn't just being violated, it was under siege. Jake had been building a case to steal my home using the very key our parents had provided. The betrayal cut deeper than any scalpel sharp enough to sever the illusions I had maintained about my family. What do I do? The question came out smaller than intended. Sarah grabbed her laptop with the determination that made her the top agent in 3 counties. "First, we document everything. Then we get ahead of whatever he's planning. Your brother might think he's clever, but he just made a critical mistake." "What's that?" "He underestimated you, and he really underestimated me." As she pulled up property laws and tenant statutes, I felt the first spark of something beyond anger. Strategy. Jake wanted my house. He had just started a war he couldn't possibly win. The little sister he dismissed was about to show him exactly what happened when you confuse kindness with weakness. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Don't forget Sunday dinner, I'm making your favorite pot roast." The normalcy of it felt surreal after what I had discovered. In 48 hours, I would sit at that mahogany table, pretending everything was fine, while my brother plotted to steal my dreams. "Sarah," I said, watching her fingers fly across the keyboard, "how do you feel about teaching me to play chess?" She looked up with a grin sharp enough to cut glass. "Honey, by the time we're done, you won't just be playing chess. You'll be rewriting the entire game." Monday morning arrived too quickly after a weekend spent analyzing property law with Sarah. I sat across from my parents at their breakfast nook, the same spot where I'd eaten countless bowls of cereal before school. Mom poured orange juice while Dad read the sports section, a domestic scene that felt like a stage production after what I'd discovered. I need to talk to you about Jake using my house. I began keeping my voice steady despite the fury burning in my chest. Dad lowered his newspaper. Using your house? What do you mean? I pulled out my phone showing them screenshots from the security footage. He's been throwing parties there twice a week while I'm at work. Look at this mess he leaves behind. Mom barely glanced at the images before waving her hand dismissively. Oh, honey, he's just blowing off steam. You know how hard things have been for him since the food truck situation fell through. The food truck situation. I couldn't keep the incredulity from my voice. You mean when he spent $40,000 on a truck, he never got permits for... That wasn't his fault. Dad interjected his tone, carrying that familiar defensive edge reserved for Jake's failures. The city regulations were unnecessarily complicated. He never even applied for the permits, Dad. He admitted that. Robin. Mom's voice took on that disappointed quality I knew too well. Your brother is struggling with depression. The least you can do is let him have some friends over occasionally. After all, we gave him that key for emergencies. Throwing parties isn't an emergency, Mom. It's trespassing. Dad's face reddened. Trespassing. He's your brother. Family doesn't trespass. Family helps each other. Or have you forgotten everything we taught you about loyalty? The irony of him lecturing me about loyalty while defending Jake's violations made my stomach turn. I'm setting boundaries, not abandoning family. Boundaries. Mom spoke the word like it tasted bitter. That's all you young people talk about nowadays. Boundaries, this, boundaries, that. What happened to blood being thicker than water? What happened to respecting people's property? It's just a house, Robin. Dad's dismissal stung more than any shout could have. You have all that space to yourself while your brother sleeps in his childhood bedroom. Don't you think you're being a bit selfish? Selfish. The word they'd weaponized against me since childhood. Selfish when I wanted to study instead of babysitting Jake. Selfish when I chose nursing school over the business degree they preferred. Selfish when I saved money instead of funding Jake's schemes. I worked for that house, I said quietly. Every overtime shift, every sacrifice, every blister from renovation work. I earned that space. Nobody's saying you didn't work hard, Mom soothed, though her eyes suggested otherwise. We're just saying family should come first. Jake needs stability right now. Having access to a peaceful environment could really help his mental health. I wanted to scream that violating my sanctuary wasn't therapy, but I recognized the futility. They'd already chosen their narrative, poor Jake, struggling with life while his mean sister hoarded resources. Nothing I said would penetrate their delusion. I need to get to work, I lied, standing before I said something irreparable. Mom caught my hand. Promise me you won't change the locks or do anything rash. Jake needs to know he has family support. I extracted my fingers from her grip without answering. As I drove away, my phone rang. Sarah. Emergency coffee meeting, she said without preamble. I found something. 20 minutes later, we hunched over her laptop in the corner booth of a diner that served coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Sarah's expression promised revelations I wouldn't like. I have a friend in IT who owes me a favor, she began, voice lowered despite the empty restaurant. I asked him to check if Jake had any digital footprint regarding your house. And, your brother's been busier than we thought. She turned the screen toward me. Email exchanges with your parents dating back 8 months. Look at this subject line, Operation Homecoming. My coffee mug trembled as I read. Mom and Dad, I've been thinking about our conversation regarding Robin's house. You're right that she has more than she needs while I'm struggling to launch my life. I found a great contractor who can convert her basement into a fully functional apartment. I'm calling it my bachelor pad rehabilitation project. Once I'm established there for a few months, we can revisit the conversation about making the arrangement more permanent. Robin won't fight us if we present a united front. She never has. The timestamp showed 3 weeks before they gave him my spare key. There's more, Sarah said gently. The next email made my blood freeze. Talk to my friend Marcus, who just passed the bar. He says if I can establish residency for 6 months, I have grounds to claim tenant rights. Even better if I can prove I've been contributing to the property's upkeep or that there was a verbal agreement about moving in. Robin would have to formally evict me. That process takes months and looks terrible. She'll cave before letting it get that far. You know how she hates confrontation. He's planning to squat in my house legally. The words came out strangled. It gets worse. Sarah scrolled to another thread. Your mom's been researching basement renovation costs and sending Jake listings for furniture. Your dad's been looking into tax implications of adding Jake as a partial owner to help with his fresh start. The diner spun around me. This wasn't impulse or opportunism. My family had been orchestrating my housing hijacking for months, discussing my home like community property they could redistribute at will. There's one more thing, Sarah said, pulling up a different screen. Jake's been on real estate forums asking about forcing property sales between siblings. Someone told him about partition actions where co-owners can force a sale and split proceeds. He specifically asked about cases where parents testified that verbal promises were made about sharing inherited property. But they didn't help me buy the house. There's no inheritance involved. Doesn't matter if he can convince them to lie about verbal agreements or promise support. Robin, he's trying to either move in permanently or force you to sell and give him half. This isn't just about crashing at your place. It's about taking your equity. The full scope of betrayal crystallized with painful clarity. While I worked night shifts, healing sick children, my family plotted to steal the one thing I'd built for myself. Every Sunday dinner where they asked about my house, every concerned check-in about whether I was lonely, every suggestion that the place was too big for one person. They'd been building a case. What kind of family does this? The question escaped before I could stop it. Sarah reached across the table, squeezing my hand, the kind that mistakes your independence for an insult and your success for selfishness. But Robin, we're going to stop them. How they've been planning this for months. Jake already has established presence in my home. My parents will testify to whatever story he spins. By being smarter. Sarah's smile held edges sharp as surgical instruments. They think you'll fold to keep the peace. They're counting on your hatred of confrontation, but they don't know we know which gives us the advantage. What kind of advantage? The kind where we let them think their plan is working while we build an airtight defense. First step, you need a lawyer, a real one, not Jake's drinking buddy, pretending to have passed the bar. Second, we document every lie, every trespass, every conspiracy. Third, we give them enough rope to hang themselves. That sounds satisfying in theory, but I still have to see them. Sunday dinners, holidays, family events where they'll guilt and manipulate me. Then we give you armor, therapy, legal protection, and friends who actually have your back. Your parents won't be the only ones presenting a united front. I stared at the email thread, seeing years of dysfunction in digital black and white. You know what hurts most? They've probably been planning this since I bought the house. Every congratulations was a lie. Every proud parent moment was them calculating how to redistribute my success to Jake. Then it's time to stop being their resource to plunder. You've spent 32 years trying to earn love. They've already allocated elsewhere. Maybe it's time to invest in people who see your worth without calculating how to steal it. I don't know how to have a family that doesn't operate like this. Then we'll teach you, starting with lawyers who protect instead of plot and friends who celebrate instead of scheme. Ready to learn? I closed the laptop, feeling something shift in my chest. The little girl who desperately wanted parental approval was finally recognizing the futility of her quest. In her place, a woman emerged who understood that family could be the deepest source of betrayal. Teach me everything I said. Sarah raised her coffee mug in a toast. Lesson 1, when family treats you like a resource instead of a person you have every right to protect yourself. Let's show them what happens when they underestimate a woman who's tired of being exploited. As we clinked ceramic mugs in that empty diner, I felt the first crack in the foundation of guilt my parents had laid. Jake wanted to play legal games with my home. He was about to learn that his little sister had evolved beyond the peacekeeper they'd trained me to be. The war for my sanctuary had officially begun. Thursday evening found me sitting in my living room sorting through old photo albums I'd inherited from Grandma Dorothy. The doorbell interrupted my nostalgia. My parents stood on my porch, Dad carrying a manila folder with the solemnity of a funeral director. "We need to talk," Mom announced, breezing past me without invitation. They settled onto my couch like judges preparing to deliver a verdict. About what I asked, though my racing heartbeat suggested I already knew. Dad opened the folder with theatrical gravity. "We've been doing some accounting, Robin. It's time we discussed your debts to this family." My debts. The words emerged as a whisper. Mom pulled out a spreadsheet, columns of numbers marching down the page like an army. "We've kept careful records over the years, everything we've done for you, every sacrifice we've made. It's all here." I took the paper with numb fingers, scanning entries that spanned decades. College textbooks junior year, $2,400. Emergency car repair after graduation, $3,800. Thanksgiving dinners, hosted 14 years, $8,400. Birthday gifts from ages 18 to 32, $12,000. Emotional support during nursing school, $5,000. Gas money for visits home, $2,000. The list continued, itemizing every gesture of parental support as a transaction. They'd even assigned monetary value to intangibles like career counseling and life advice. The total sat at the bottom in bold red ink, $47,000. Emotional support has a price. I couldn't hide my disbelief. "Therapy costs $200 an hour," Dad replied. "We've provided countless hours of guidance over the years. If anything, we undervalued it." "These birthday gifts, you're charging me for birthday presents." Mom's expression hardened. "Gifts given with the expectation of family reciprocity. You've received so much from us, Robin. Now it's time to give back." "I don't have $47,000 lying around." "We know." Dad leaned forward, his salesman smile emerging. "Which is why we're proposing an alternative arrangement. Jake moves into your basement, you waive rent for 5 years, and we'll consider the debt significantly reduced." Significantly reduced, not forgiven. Well, he'll need money for renovations and settling in. We figure his residence is worth about $30,000 in rent over 5 years. The remaining balance can be addressed through future family support. I set the spreadsheet aside, my hands surprisingly steady. "Can I ask you something? How much has Jake cost you over the years?" Mom shifted uncomfortably. "That's not relevant." "Humor me. The food truck was $40,000. The app development was $15,000. The cryptocurrency investment was $20,000. That's $75,000 just in failed businesses." "Those were investments in his future," Dad protested. "And my college textbooks weren't an investment in mine." "You've already benefited from your education. You have a career, a house. Jake's still finding his path." "He's 35. "Success comes at different times for different people," Mom snapped. "Not everyone follows your rigid timeline, Robin. Some people need more support." I studied the spreadsheet again, noticing something odd. This car repair for $3,800. That was Jake's car. He borrowed mine after he totaled his, and when he returned it with a blown engine, I had to fix it. "The car was in your name," Dad said smoothly. "The repair benefited you." "Because Jake destroyed it." "Details like that don't change the overall picture. You've taken more than you've given to this family." "Taken." I stood, anger finally overtaking shock. "I've worked since I was 16. I paid for most of college myself through scholarships and night jobs. I've never asked you for money for my house or renovations. Meanwhile, Jake lives rent-free in your home, eats your food, uses your utilities, and you hand him thousands for every half-baked scheme." "Jake contributes in other ways," Mom insisted. "Name one." Silence stretched between us before Dad cleared his throat. "He keeps us company. You barely visit anymore." "I work 60 hours a week saving children's lives. Jake plays video games in your basement." "At least he prioritizes family," Mom shot back. "When was the last time you stayed for dinner without checking your phone? When did you last help with yard work or grocery shopping? Last month, I spent my only day off helping you clean gutters while Jake claimed he had a job interview. The interview was at a bar. I saw the charge on his Instagram. Dad stood his face flushing. This attitude is exactly why we need this arrangement. You've become selfish, Robin, calculating. Everything is transactional with you. The irony of him saying that while holding an itemized bill for my childhood nearly made me laugh. Instead, I moved to my desk, pulling out my own folder. Speaking of calculations, I said, I did some research after our breakfast conversation. This is interesting. Did you know falsifying financial records for legal manipulation is fraud? Mom paled. We didn't falsify anything. Really, because I have receipts showing I paid for those textbooks myself. The car repair was covered by my insurance after I filed a claim for Jake's accident. These Thanksgiving dinners, I have photos of me cooking and grocery receipts I saved for taxes since I claimed them as charitable hosting. You kept receipts from college. Dad's voice cracked. I keep everything, including this. I pulled out another document. Email from Jake to someone named Marcus about inflating numbers for the family meeting. He mentions adding fake expenses and combining his costs with mine to make the debt seem legitimate. The paper trembled in Mom's hands as she read her son's words. Make sure to add anything you've ever spent on both of us, but put it all under Robin's name. She won't be able to prove which expenses were hers versus mine. Mom and Dad are totally on board. They think she owes them for raising her anyway. Where did you get this? Dad demanded. Does it matter your golden child just admitted to conspiracy to commit fraud? And you're co-conspirators. We're your parents. Mom's voice rose to a shriek. We changed your diapers, drove you to school, sat through your boring awards ceremonies. That has to count for something. It does. It counts as doing the job you signed up for when you had children. It doesn't create a debt I have to pay forever. Dad snatched back the spreadsheet. Fine. If you want to be technical about it, we'll get lawyers involved. We'll testify that you promised to help Jake when you became successful. Verbal contracts are binding in this state. No, they're not. Not for real estate or amounts over $500. Did Jake tell you that? Or was it Marcus, the fake lawyer? He passed the bar, Mom insisted. In which state? Because I checked the registry. No Marcus Sullivan has been admitted to the bar in the past 5 years anywhere in the tri-state area. My parents exchanged glances that spoke volumes. They'd known. Of course they'd known. But the lie served their purpose, so they'd embraced it. I want you to leave, I said quietly. Robin, don't be dramatic, Mom started. Get out of my house and leave the spare key. We're not giving you the key, Dad said firmly. We're your parents. We have a right to access in case of emergencies. Then I'll change the locks. We'll make copies. Then I'll file a restraining order. The words hung in the air like a bomb detonation. Mom's face crumbled into tears. A restraining order against your own parents. What would people think? Probably that I have good reasons. Dad pulled Mom toward the door, his parting shot delivered over his shoulder. This isn't over, Robin. One way or another, you're going to learn that family takes care of family, even if we have to force the lesson. After they left, I collapsed onto my couch, the photo albums scattered around me showing happier times that might have been just as fabricated as their financial records. My phone buzzed. Sarah. Security cameras caught everything, her text read, including them admitting to knowing about the fraud. My lawyer friend Marcus says this is golden evidence. Yes, a real lawyer named Marcus. The irony isn't lost on me. I laughed despite everything the sound echoing in my empty house. My parents had just escalated from emotional manipulation to attempted financial fraud. Jake had involved them in his scheme so deeply they couldn't extract themselves without admitting their own crimes. Another text from Sarah. BTW, that spreadsheet they showed you. Marcus says it's evidence of extortion. Presenting false debts to coerce property access is a felony. Want to press charges. I stared at family photos of Christmas mornings and birthday parties, seeing the calculation behind every smile. They'd probably been keeping that ledger since I was 18, waiting for me to accumulate something worth taking. Not yet, I typed back. Let them dig deeper. I want to see how far they're willing to go. You sure this is already pretty far? I picked up a photo of 5-year-old me on Jake's shoulders, both of us grinning at the camera. Even then, our parents had probably been deciding which child deserved investment and which one owed repayment. They think I'm weak because I've always kept the peace. Time to show them what I learned in all those years of silence. Which is that the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with evidence documentation and a real lawyer who actually passed the bar. As I settled in for the night surrounded by the fragments of a childhood, I was finally seeing. Clearly, I felt oddly peaceful. My family had shown their true colors in black and white, columned and calculated. They wanted to put a price on love. Fine. But they'd forgotten one crucial thing about their daughter, the nurse I'd learned precision from years of calculating medication dosages. And I never ever made errors when lives were on the line, even my own. Saturday morning brought an unexpected summons to Grandmother Margaret's estate. The text from Mom had been cryptic. Family meeting at Grandma's, 2 p.m. sharp, don't be late. I arrived at the sprawling colonial house that had sheltered 4 generations of our family, its white columns and manicured gardens masking the dysfunction within. Cars packed the circular driveway like a funeral procession. Inside, the entire extended family gathered in the formal living room, faces grave as pallbearers. Grandmother Margaret sat in her wingback chair like a queen holding court. At 84, she commanded attention with sharp blue eyes that missed nothing and an iron will that had built the family fortune through her late husband's construction empire. Jake lounged beside her, his hand resting possessively on her chair arm. Now that Robin has finally graced us with her presence, Margaret began, her voice cutting through murmured conversations, we can address the elephant in the room. I found a seat near the door, instincts screaming retreat. Uncle Thomas caught my eye from across the room, his expression unreadable. I've been hearing disturbing things, Margaret continued, her gaze boring into me. Stories of selfishness, of abandoning family, of choosing material possessions over blood bonds. Grandma, I started, but she raised a silencing hand. Jake has been visiting me every week for the past 6 months. Do you know when I last saw you, Robin? I did know. 3 months ago when I'd brought her favorite lavender cookies and spent the afternoon looking through wedding albums. But something in Jake's smirk warned me to stay silent. She doesn't even remember, Jake stage whispered. That's how little you matter to her grandma. I've brought you cookies every month, I protested. Handwritten letters every 2 weeks. I call every Sunday. Margaret's frown deepened. I haven't received a single letter or cookie in half a year. The only calls I get are from telemarketers and Jake. That's not possible. I have receipts from the bakery photos of the letters I mailed. Lies to cover your neglect, Jake interjected smoothly. It's sad, really. She probably believes her own stories. I pulled out my phone scrolling to find the photos, but Margaret waved dismissively. I didn't call this meeting to hear excuses. I called it to announce a change to my will. The room collectively held its breath. Margaret's estate was legendary, whispered about in envious tones at family gatherings. The Victorian house alone was worth $2 million, not counting the investment portfolio and family business holdings. I've always believed in rewarding loyalty and family values, she continued. Jake has shown me what true devotion looks like. Every Thursday, rain or shine, he's here. He helps with groceries, fixes things around the house, keeps me company when the loneliness creeps in. I love spending time with you, Grandma, Jake said, his voice dripping sincerity. Family means everything to me. Which is why I'm restructuring my will. Jake will receive 60% of my estate. His dedication deserves recognition. Gasps echoed through the room. Cousins who'd been promised equal shares shifted uncomfortably. Aunt Catherine's face turned purple. As for Robin, Margaret's voice turned arctic. I'm deeply disappointed in your choices, hoarding resources while your brother suffers, choosing isolation over family. Your parents told me about your threats of restraining orders, your refusal to help despite everything they've done for you. Grandma, please let me explain. I've heard enough explanations. You'll receive 10% enough to remember what you've lost through selfishness. Consider it a lesson in priorities. What about the rest of us? Cousin Michael demanded. Margaret silenced him with a look. The remaining 30% will be divided among other family members based on their support of family unity. Those who enable Robin's behavior will find themselves similarly reduced. The threat hung clear side with me and lose your inheritance. The room's atmosphere shifted palpably as relatives calculated their allegiances. This is about my house, isn't it? I stood, anger overtaking caution. Jake wants my property and you're all helping him steal it. Nobody's stealing anything, Dad interjected. We're trying to help you remember what matters. By threatening to disinherit me, by showing you consequences, Margaret replied coldly. You have 6 months to prove your commitment to this family. Help your brother establish himself. Show the generosity we taught you, or live with your choices. You mean submit to extortion? I mean act like family instead of a stranger hoarding wealth. I looked around the room at faces I'd known since birth, seeing calculation instead of love. Only Uncle Thomas met my gaze with something like sympathy. May I ask a question? I kept my voice steady despite the tremors in my chest. Jake, you say you visit every Thursday. Like clockwork, he confirmed. Funny because I work at the hospital's urgent care on Thursdays. 3 weeks ago, you came in with alcohol poisoning at 2 p.m. The week before that, you were treated for a bar fight injury at 3 p.m. Would you like me to pull the medical records? Jake's smirk faltered. Those must be different days. I have the discharge papers in my car. Should I get them? Medical records are private, Mom said quickly. You can't share those. He signed a release allowing me access as his emergency contact. Remember, Jake, you needed someone sober to pick you up. Margaret turned to Jake with narrowed eyes. You told me you stopped drinking. I have mostly. Robin's exaggerating isolated incidents. Isolated, I have 17 emergency contact calls in 6 months. Would you like to see those too? Enough! Margaret slammed her cane against the floor. I don't care about your petty squabbles. The will stands as announced. Robin has 6 months to prove she values family over possessions. And if I prove Jake's been lying about the visits, about the letters, then prove it. But until then, my decision stands. I gathered my purse with as much dignity as I could muster. I understand. You've all made your positions crystal clear. As I headed for the door, Jake's voice followed me. 6 months, sis. Plenty of time to come to your senses, or lose everything that actually matters. I've already lost that, I replied without turning. You all just put a price tag on it. Outside footsteps hurried after me. Uncle Thomas, slightly out of breath, caught my arm. Robin, wait! Come to deliver more threats. He glanced back at the house, then pulled me further into the garden. Come to tell you something important, but not here. Meet me at the old coffee shop on Elm tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Why should I trust you? Because I've been watching this circus for years, staying quiet to protect myself. But what they're doing to you? He shook his head. Even I have limits. Tomorrow, don't tell anyone. He disappeared back into the house before I could respond. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands shaking too badly to drive. The family I'd tried so hard to please had just put a price on their love, my house, my dignity, my submission to their chosen narrative. My phone buzzed with texts from cousins, their messages ranging from sympathy to subtle threats about choosing sides wisely. The family fracture lines were showing all because I dared to succeed without permission. Another text, this one from Jake. Grandma's caretaker just quit. Weird how she left so suddenly after 6 years. Good thing I'm here to help find a replacement, someone who understands family loyalty. The implication chilled me. Had Jake driven away the woman who might have witnessed his lies? How deep did this conspiracy go? I drove home in a daze, finding Sarah's car already in my driveway. She took one look at my face and opened her arms. I fell into them, sobbing out the entire meeting while she rubbed my back and made increasingly creative threats against my relatives. "They're evil," she declared when I finished. "Cartoon villain levels of evil. They're my family." No, honey. Family doesn't hold love hostage for real estate. These people are just relatives who happen to share DNA. Grandma's going to disinherit me. Grandma's being manipulated by a con artist grandson. We'll prove it. How Jake's covered his tracks. He's probably been planning this for months, destroying evidence of my visits, intercepting my letters. Sarah's eyes gleamed. Then we'll create new evidence, starting with whatever your Uncle Thomas knows. If Jake wants to play dirty, we'll show him what happens when he underestimates the good girls. I'm tired of being good. Then let's try being smart instead. Your family just declared war, Robin. Time to show them that nurses don't just heal. We also know exactly where to cut. I laughed through my tears, feeling something harden in my chest, where family loyalty used to live. They wanted to use Grandma's fortune as a weapon. Fine. But they'd forgotten one crucial detail. I'd spent years watching them reveal their true selves, and I'd inherited Grandma's sharp eyes along with her trust. The 6-month countdown had begun, but I wouldn't be using it to submit. I'd be using it to expose every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal. Jake thought he'd won by turning Grandma against me. He had no idea he'd just activated an enemy with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The game was far from over. Monday morning started like any other at Children's Memorial Hospital. I'd just finished rounds in the pediatric ICU when our unit manager, Patricia, intercepted me near the nurses' station. "Robin, could I see you in my office? It's important." The walk down the hallway felt endless, my mind racing through potential issues. Had I made a medication error? Missed documentation? Patricia's expression gave nothing away as she closed the door behind us. I received some concerning calls over the weekend. She began settling behind her desk. "From your family members. Your brother Jake came by Friday afternoon." My blood chilled. Jake was here. He said he was checking on his troubled sister. He seemed very worried about your mental state. "Patricia, I can explain." She held up a hand. He was quite charming. Brought donuts for the staff, spent an hour talking about how concerned he was about your increasing paranoia and isolation. He mentioned you've been making false accusations against family members, threatening restraining orders, exhibiting signs of severe stress. None of that is true. Well, the stress part may be, but he also suggested you might be self-medicating, said he's noticed mood swings and erratic behavior. I gripped the chair arms to keep my hands from shaking. "Patricia, I've never taken anything stronger than ibuprofen. You can drug test me right now." "I know, Robin. I've worked with you for 5 years, but when family members express these concerns, I have to follow protocol." She pulled out a form. "I need you to undergo a fitness for duty evaluation. It's standard procedure when questions arise about an employee's mental health." "You're putting me on administrative leave." "Just until the evaluation clears you. Dr. Harrison can see you Wednesday. Until then, I need your badge." The humiliation burned as I unpinned my ID. 5 years of perfect performance reviews, countless commendations, families whose children I'd saved, and it all crumbled because Jake played concerned brother. "Patricia, he's trying to steal my house. This is retaliation because I won't let him move in." Her expression softened slightly. "I believe you're going through something difficult with your family, but that's exactly why we need this evaluation, to prove you're handling it appropriately." I stood on wooden legs. Can I at least say goodbye to my patients? "I'm sorry. Protocol says immediate removal when mental health concerns arise. Security will escort you to gather your things." The walk of shame through the hospital felt endless. Colleagues whispered behind hands as Paul from security followed me to my locker. Word traveled fast in hospitals. By lunch, everyone would know Robin got suspended for mental instability. In the parking garage, I sat in my car and screamed until my throat went raw. Then I called Sarah. He did what her shriek could probably be heard 3 states over. Played the concerned relative card. Patricia had no choice but to follow procedure. That manipulative piece of Sarah, he knew exactly what he was doing. I can't work without clearance. I can't work, I can't pay my mortgage. I can't pay my mortgage. You lose the house. Son of a bitch planned this perfectly. It gets worse. I saw him taking photos when he was here. The restricted areas, the medication rooms. What if he's planning something bigger? Like what? I don't know, but Jake doesn't do anything without an angle. He spent an hour charming my coworkers, establishing himself as the caring brother. Why invest that time unless there's a payoff? Sarah went quiet, her lawyer brain clearly working. Robin, has Jake ever shown interest in medical stuff before? No, he thinks my job is glorified babysitting. Then why photograph medical areas unless… She trailed off. Unless what? Unless he's building a false malpractice case. Think about it. He establishes concern about your mental state, documents the areas you work in. Then if anything happens to any patient, even unrelated to you, he has groundwork to suggest negligence. My stomach heaved. He wouldn't. Would he? Robin, he's trying to steal your house. You think he'd draw the line at destroying your career? I thought about the calculating look in Jake's eyes at Grandma's meeting. The answer was obvious. I need to warn Patricia. No, you need to stay away from the hospital until cleared. Any contact looks like the instability Jake described. We need to be smarter. Then what do I do? First, we get you the best psychiatrist in the state for that evaluation. Second, we document everything. Third, we find out what else Jake's been up to while playing loving brother. That evening, I sat at home feeling like a caged animal. My phone rang constantly with coworkers checking in, their concern genuine, but their questions probing. Jake had poisoned my professional well so thoroughly that even friends wondered if something was wrong with me. The doorbell interrupted my spiraling thoughts. Through the peephole, I saw Daniel, my boyfriend of 8 months, holding takeout bags. Figured you might need dinner, he said when I opened the door. His expression was carefully neutral, which immediately set off alarms. You heard about the hospital? Jake called me. He set the food on my counter, movements precise. Said he was worried about you, that you've been acting paranoid, making wild accusations. And you believed him. I didn't know what to believe. He seemed genuinely concerned. Mentioned you've been recording family members hiring lawyers talking about conspiracies. Because they're conspiring to steal my house. Daniel flinched at my volume. See, that's what he means. You sound… What crazy paranoid. Exactly what he wanted you to think. Robin, I'm trying to understand. Your mom called too. She cried, Dan. Said she doesn't recognize her daughter anymore. I laughed bitterly. Did she mention the itemized bill they presented for raising me? The fraudulent debt they created to justify taking my property? She said you misunderstood their attempt to help with your finances. Misunderstood. I grabbed the spreadsheet from my desk, shoving it at him. Look at this. They charged me for birthday presents, for emotional support. They put Jake's car repairs under my name. Daniel studied the document, his frown deepening. This does seem excessive. Excessive, it's fraud. Or it's a family having different recollections about money. Robin, are you sure you're not reading malice into misunderstandings? The betrayal stung worse than my family's machinations. You think I'm imagining this? I think you're under enormous stress. Jake mentioned you haven't been sleeping, that you installed cameras everywhere, that you're documenting every conversation. Those are concerning behaviors. Those are protective behaviors when your family is actively trying to destroy your life. Listen to yourself. Destroy your life, that's dramatic language for a housing dispute. I stared at the man I thought understood me. They got me suspended from my job today. Jake said he was worried about patient safety given your mental state. Jake doesn't give a damn about patient safety. He cares about making me desperate enough to give him my house. Daniel set down the papers carefully. I think you should consider talking to someone. A therapist who can help you process these family issues. You mean a therapist who can confirm I'm crazy, so everyone can dismiss me? No one thinks you're crazy. Then why are you here with kid gloves and takeout instead of anger that someone sabotaged my career? He couldn't meet my eyes. Your mom said you've always been sensitive about Jake, that you've resented him since childhood, and maybe this house situation triggered old patterns. Get out. Robin. I said, get out. If you can't see what they're doing after everything I've shown you, then you're either blind or complicit. I'm trying to help. No, you're trying to manage me. There's a difference. After he left, I collapsed on my couch, surrounded by evidence no one wanted to see. Jake had executed a perfect character assassination. By the time I proved my sanity to the hospital, how much more damage would be done? My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, check your Instagram. I opened the app to find my professional account flooded with comments. Someone had posted on the hospital's page about concerns with unstable nurse Robin treating vulnerable children. The account was anonymous, but I recognized the writing style. Jake had escalated to public defamation. Before I could screenshot everything, the posts vanished. Of course. Plant the seeds of doubt, then remove evidence of manipulation. Classic Jake, though, with a sophistication suggesting coaching. Another text this time from a colleague, security found someone in the medication room after hours Friday. No drugs missing, but they were photographing protocols. Thought you should know since it happened right after your brother's visit. The final piece clicked. Jake wasn't building a malpractice case. He was studying hospital procedures for something bigger. But what? My phone rang. Sarah. Got interesting news from my investigator friend, she said, without preamble. Jake's been busy, not just at your hospital. He's visited 3 others in the past week, always with the same concerned brother routine. Why multiple hospitals? He's been asking about HIPAA violations, about how hospitals handle employee mental health issues, about liability insurance. Robin, I think he's planning to sue the hospital for employing you despite known mental health issues. But I don't have mental health issues. Doesn't matter if he can create enough doubt. Hospitals settle to avoid publicity. He could be angling for a payout he'd claim you owe him as family support. The sophistication of the attack took my breath away. This wasn't just about my house anymore. Jake was systematically destroying every aspect of my life, creating multiple pressure points to force surrender. Sarah, how do I fight this? He's 10 steps ahead. No, he just started earlier, but he's also getting cocky, hitting multiple hospitals, leaving trails. Desperate people make mistakes. We just need to catch him in one. Before I lose everything. You haven't lost anything yet, just gained clarity about who deserves to be in your life. As I hung up, I realized the truth in her words. Jake's Scorched Earth campaign had revealed not just his true nature, but everyone else's. Daniel's quick doubt, my parents' willing participation, my colleagues' whispered suspicions. The attack was clarifying in its cruelty. I pulled out a notebook and began writing. Every incident, every conversation, every betrayal. If Jake wanted to paint me as unstable, I'd create a record so detailed that his lies would crumble under scrutiny. He'd made one critical error in targeting my job. He'd threatened not just me, but my patients. And there was nothing more dangerous than a nurse protecting those in her care. The war had entered a new phase. Time to show Jake that destroying someone's life required more than charm and manipulation. It required surviving their revenge. Tuesday evening arrived with Daniel at my door again, this time without takeout or apologies. His expression carried a strange mixture of guilt and confusion that immediately set my nerves on edge. "We need to talk," he said, pushing past me into the living room. "I thought we said everything yesterday." "That's before I got these." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through what appeared to be dating app messages. "Care to explain why you're on 3 different sites sending explicit messages to my coworkers?" I stared at the screen, seeing my photos attached to profiles I'd never created. The messages were vulgar, desperate, completely unlike anything I'd ever write. "Daniel, I didn't create these profiles." "Really? Because they have photos from your private Instagram. Pictures I took of you at the beach last month that you never posted publicly." My blood ran cold. Those photos were on my phone and laptop. Someone hacked my accounts. "Or you're having some kind of breakdown and don't remember doing this." He scrolled to another message. "You propositioned my boss, Robin, my married boss. Do you understand what this could do to my career?" "I didn't do this. Think about it logically. Why would I suddenly start soliciting your coworkers? Jake said you might lash out if I tried to help you see reality." Daniel's voice carried a rehearsed quality that made my skin crawl. "He warned me you'd blame everyone except yourself." "When did you talk to Jake?" "We've been texting since last week. He reached out because he was concerned about you. We actually grabbed beers yesterday after he visited your mom. You went drinking with my brother while I was dealing with a work suspension he caused. He's trying to help you, Robin. He showed me documentation of your past episodes." "What episodes?" Daniel pulled up photos on his phone. Medical-looking documents with my name describing treatment for bipolar disorder, paranoid delusions, and borderline personality. The dates went back years. The hospital logos looked authentic. "These are fake," I whispered, hands shaking. "I've never been diagnosed with any of these conditions." "Jake said you'd say that. He mentioned you often block out episodes, rewrite history to maintain your self-image. And you believe him over me, your girlfriend of 8 months. I don't know what to believe anymore. These profiles, your behavior lately, the things your family describes. It's all adding up to something concerning." I grabbed my laptop, pulling up my bank statements. "Look at this. Every transaction, every payment, every detail of my life. Do you see any payments to psychiatrists? Any prescription medications? Any evidence of the treatment these fake documents describe?" Daniel barely glanced at the screen. "Jake mentioned you're good at hiding things, that you've created elaborate systems to seem normal." Jake said. Jake warned. I slammed the laptop shut. "Do you hear yourself? You're taking the word of someone you barely know over mine." "He's your brother. He's known you your whole life. He's a con artist who's trying to steal my house." "There you go again with the conspiracy theories." Daniel stood moving toward the door. "I can't do this, Robin. I wanted to help, but you're so deep in your delusions that you can't see reality." "The reality is that someone created fake dating profiles to sabotage our relationship, and you're falling for it. Or the reality is that you need help I'm not qualified to give." He paused at the door. "Jake offered to help you find a good inpatient program. Maybe you should consider it." Inpatient. The word came out as a shriek. "You want me committed?" "I want you healthy. We all do." After he left, I called Sarah, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. "Slow down," she said after I'd word vomited the entire confrontation. "Fake medical records, that's a serious felony." He's got Daniel convinced I'm having a psychotic break. These dating profiles used private photos. Jake must have gotten into my account somehow. Or he had help. "Robin, does anyone else have access to your devices?" I thought back. My mom borrowed my laptop last month to look at cruise websites, and my phone... Oh, God. What? 3 weeks ago, I left my phone at my parents' house after dinner. Jake returned it the next morning, said he found it in the couch cushions. Plenty of time to clone it or install spyware. We need to get your devices checked immediately. Sarah, the fake medical records? If he's showing those around, if people believe them, it's identity theft and fraud. But Robin, this is escalating beyond property theft. He's trying to have you involuntarily committed. If he succeeds, he gets power of attorney, control over my house, my finances, everything. We need to move fast. Can you stay with someone tonight? If Daniel's turned, others might follow. You need witnesses to your actual mental state. I thought about my depleted pool of allies. Maybe Uncle Thomas. He seems sympathetic at Grandma's. Perfect. Pack a bag, document everything, and Robin, change all your passwords from a device Jake's never touched. An hour later, I sat in Uncle Thomas's kitchen, watching him read through the fake profiles and medical documents. His face grew increasingly grim. "This is sophisticated work," he said finally, not Jake's usual ham-fisted approach. "You think he has help?" "I know he does." Thomas poured himself scotch, offering me a glass I gratefully accepted. "Your grandmother's lawyer, Harrison Wells. He's been having private meetings with Jake for months. I thought it was about the will, but this—" He gestured at the evidence. "This is Harrison's specialty. He's done this before." "Done what?" "Helped families gain control of difficult relatives' assets. He calls it protective intervention. Create enough doubt about someone's mental state, get them committed or under conservatorship, then manage their affairs for a hefty fee." My world tilted. "Grandma's in on this." "No, I don't think so. She's being manipulated too. Harrison's probably convinced her you're unstable, feeding her selective information. Jake provides the family angle, Harrison provides the legal strategy." "How do you know all this?" Thomas stared into his scotch. "Because 15 years ago they did it to my brother Carl. Remember how he suddenly moved to Arizona for his health?" "He didn't move. He was institutionalized for 8 months while Harrison managed his assets. By the time Carl got out, his savings were gone, his house sold, everything liquidated for medical expenses." "Why didn't anyone stop it?" "Who'd believe the ravings of someone officially diagnosed as delusional? Carl spent years trying to prove what happened, died of a heart attack at 50, broken by the betrayal." "And you said nothing?" "I was young, scared, financially dependent on the family. I've regretted my silence every day since." He met my eyes, "Which is why I'm not staying silent now." "What do we do?" "First, we get you a real psychiatrist, one who can't be bought. Second, we document Harrison's pattern. Third, we beat them at their own game." "How?" Thomas smiled grimly. "By letting them think they're winning while we build an airtight defense. Jake's getting sloppy. Harrison's getting greedy. They'll overplay their hand." My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Sweetheart, we're all worried about you. Jake showed us the dating profiles. This isn't like you. Please let us help. Dr. Morrison has an opening at his facility tomorrow. Just a few weeks to rest and get your head straight. We'll take care of everything while you're gone." I showed Thomas the message. His laugh was bitter. "Dr. Morrison, Harrison's pet psychiatrist. Once you're in his facility, you won't get out until you sign whatever they put in front of you. They're really going to try to have me committed. Try Robin, they've been laying groundwork for weeks. The job suspension, the relationship sabotage, the social isolation. Classic signs of mental deterioration to any judge who doesn't look too close. So I'm trapped." "No, you're warned. There's a difference." He pulled out an old flip phone. "Use this for important calls. They can't hack what they don't know exists. Tomorrow we visit my lawyer. The real kind, not Harrison's type." "Will anyone believe me over all their manufactured evidence?" "They'll have to when we prove Harrison and Jake created that evidence. But Robin, this is going to get uglier before it gets better. They've invested too much to back down now. I thought about Daniel's quick betrayal, my parents' calculated cruelty, Jake's escalating attacks. Let them come. I've got nothing left to lose." "That's where you're wrong," Thomas said quietly. "You've got truth on your side. In the end, that's worth more than all their lies combined." As I settled into Thomas's guest room, surrounded by evidence of my family's betrayal, I felt oddly calm. They'd pushed too hard, revealed too much. In trying to paint me as crazy, they'd exposed their own insanity. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. But tonight, for the first time in weeks, I wasn't alone. And sometimes that made all the difference. Wednesday morning arrived with a process server at Uncle Thomas's door. The woman looked apologetic as she handed me the thick envelope. "Robin Parker, you've been served." Thomas read over my shoulder as I opened the documents. The legal language swam before my eyes, but certain phrases leaped out. Emergency conservatorship. Immediate psychiatric evaluation. Danger to herself and others. "They filed for an emergency hold," Thomas muttered. "We have 72 hours before the hearing." The paperwork was signed by my parents with supporting affidavits from Jake grandmother Margaret and 3 people I'd never heard of claiming to be concerned friends. Who are these people? I pointed to the unknown names. Thomas studied them. 2 are Harrison's paralegals. The 3rd is Morrison's intake coordinator. They're padding the petition with fake witnesses. Is that legal? Nothing about this is legal, but it'll take months to prove that. By then, they'll have control of everything. My phone rang, Patricia from the hospital. Robin, I'm calling as a courtesy. We received a formal complaint about your mental state from multiple family members. The board met this morning. Given the safety concerns raised, we're converting your administrative leave to indefinite suspension pending resolution of your situation. Patricia, please, I can prove this is all fabricated. I hope you can, but until then, my hands are tied. Your brother submitted security footage of you appearing agitated at the nurse's station last month. I was upset because a patient coded, "We saved her life." Out of context, it looks like erratic behavior. I'm sorry, Robin. Get the help you need. She hung up before I could respond. My career built over years of dedication crumbled with a single phone call. Sarah arrived within an hour, accompanied by a stern-faced woman in a navy suit. This is Amanda Chen, Sarah introduced. Best defense attorney in the state. She specializes in conservatorship abuse. Amanda's handshake was firm, her assessment quick. I've seen this playbook before. The good news is they're moving too fast. Emergency holds require immediate danger. Being angry about family theft doesn't qualify. They have fake medical records, I explained, forged dating profiles, manufactured evidence of instability. Show me everything. For 2 hours, we dissected each piece of evidence. Amanda took notes, occasionally snorting in derision. This is amateur hour, she declared. The medical records have inconsistencies, wrong hospital codes, impossible dates. The dating profiles were created from IP addresses, traceable to your parents' house. They got sloppy. So we can fight this. We can destroy this. But first, we need to document your actual mental state. I've arranged for Dr. Patricia Williams to evaluate you today. She's testified in hundreds of cases and can't be bought. What about the hearing? Leave that to me. Focus on gathering counter evidence. Thomas mentioned Harrison Wells. I've been waiting years to take him down. That afternoon, I sat in Dr. Williams' office answering questions with exhaustive honesty. She was thorough, professional, and surprisingly warm. In 30 years of practice, she said after 3 hours of evaluation, I've rarely seen someone handling sustained familial abuse with such clarity. You're anxious and angry, which are appropriate responses to your situation, but delusional, dangerous, absolutely not. Will a judge believe you over their experts? I'll make sure of it. But Robin, are you prepared for what comes next? Your family won't stop at legal measures. Harrison Wells has a reputation for scorched earth tactics. That evening, her warning proved prophetic. Local news ran a segment about concerns over mental health screening for pediatric nurses, featuring a shadowy interview with someone claiming insider knowledge of a dangerous nurse at Children's Memorial. The voice was disguised, but I recognized Jake's speech patterns. He'd taken the fight public using my suspended status to destroy my reputation citywide. Facebook exploded with concerned parents questioning whether their children had been treated by the unstable nurse. My professional social media filled with hate messages. Years of positive reviews vanished under an avalanche of manufactured outrage. They're trying to make you radioactive, Thomas observed, watching the news coverage. Even if you win the conservatorship hearing, no hospital will hire you with this hanging over your head. Then we make them equally radioactive, Amanda said, arriving with boxes of files. I've pulled every case Harrison's touched in the past 20 years. The pattern is damning. 17 conservatorships, all involving significant assets, all resulting in financial depletion of the ward. That's proof of pattern, not specific wrongdoing, Sarah pointed out. True, which is why we need someone on the inside. Amanda turned to Thomas. You mentioned Carl kept records before he died. Thomas disappeared into his study, returning with a banker's box. Everything Carl could salvage. Financial records showing Harrison's theft correspondence about bribes to Morrison, even recordings of threats when Carl tried to fight back. Amanda's eyes gleamed as she reviewed the contents. This is gold. With Carl's evidence and Robin's case, we can expose the entire network. But will it help me win Friday's hearing? Win Robin, we're not just going to win. We're going to destroy them so thoroughly they'll be too busy defending criminal charges to ever come near you again. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, a photo of my house with Jake's car in the driveway. The message read, "Already making myself at home. See you at the hearing, if you show up." Is that a threat? I asked, showing Amanda. It's evidence. He just admitted to trespassing and attempted intimidation. She smiled sharply. Your brother isn't just sloppy. He's stupid. Thursday flew by in a blur of preparation. Amanda coached me on courtroom demeanor while Sarah gathered witness statements from colleagues defending my professional competence. Thomas worked his network, finding 3 of Harrison's previous victims willing to testify. That evening, we convened for final strategy. Amanda laid out the battle plan with military precision. They'll paint you as dangerously unstable a threat to yourself and others. We'll prove systematic fraud conspiracy and racketeering. They'll expect you to be defensive. Instead, we go on full offense. What about the judge? Judge Patricia Newcomb, reputation for fairness and particular hatred of financial elder abuse. Harrison made a mistake filing in her court. Or he knows something we don't, Thomas warned. Maybe, but I've got contingencies for their contingencies. Robin gets some sleep. Tomorrow we remind them why backing someone into a corner is dangerous. But sleep proved elusive. I lay in Thomas's guest room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything I'd lost. My family, my boyfriend, my job, my reputation. All for a house that represented my independence. No, I realized. Not for the house. For the principle that I deserved to exist independently, to succeed without permission, to thrive without subsidizing Jake's failures. My phone showed dozens of messages I couldn't bear to read. Former friends questioning my sanity, colleagues distancing themselves, relatives choosing sides. The family that had promised unconditional love had instead offered a transaction surrender or be destroyed. Tomorrow's hearing would determine more than conservatorship. It would decide whether a lifetime of being the responsible one, the successful one, the independent one, was a crime punishable by complete annihilation. As dawn approached, I made a decision. Win or lose, I would never again sacrifice my truth for their approval. They'd already taken everything that mattered except my integrity, and that they'd have to pry from my cold, dead hands. Friday morning arrived with an unexpected visitor at Thomas's door. Margaret's former caretaker, Elena, stood on the porch, clutching a manila envelope, her face drawn with worry. Ms. Robin, I'm sorry to bother you, but Mr. Thomas said you needed to see this before court. I invited her in, noting how she glanced nervously over her shoulder. Elena, what happened? Why did you really quit? I didn't quit. Jake forced me out. She opened the envelope, revealing pages of handwritten logs. I kept records of everything. Every visit, every conversation, every time Jake intercepted your letters and gifts. My hands trembled as I read her meticulous notes, dates and times when I'd sent packages that Jake claimed never arrived. Descriptions of him stealing gift cards meant for Margaret, replacing my homemade cookies with store-bought ones he passed off as his own. He's been drugging her, Elena whispered. Small doses of her sleeping medication in her afternoon tea. Makes her confused, forgetful. Then he tells her stories about you abandoning her. Why didn't you report this? To who? He's family. I'm just hired help, but when I saw the news about him trying to have you committed... She pulled out a flash drive. Security footage from Margaret's home system. Jake doesn't know it backs up to the cloud. Thomas immediately plugged it into his laptop. The footage showed Jake pocketing my letters, throwing away flowers I'd sent, even practicing concerned facial expressions in the mirror before visiting Margaret. There's more. Elena continued. He's been accessing her financial accounts. Small transfers he claimed were for household expenses, but the money went to his gambling debts. Elder abuse and financial exploitation. Amanda said, having arrived early to review last-minute evidence. This changes everything. Elena, would you testify? I'm scared, Elena admitted. Jake threatened my family if I talked, said he knew where my children went to school. We can protect you, Amanda assured her, but we need your testimony to save both Robin and Margaret. As Elena wrestled with her decision, my phone rang. The hospital's number appeared on screen. Robin, it's David from security. I'm not supposed to call, but something's happened. That complaint about you, we traced the security footage your brother submitted. It was doctored. Timestamps manipulated, audio altered. Can you prove it? Already did. Showed it to Patricia an hour ago. She's furious about being deceived. The board's meeting again this morning. Hope flickered in my chest. David, can you send that evidence to my lawyer? Already done in Robin. We all know you're not crazy. Jake played us, but we're not letting him win. Amanda's smile turned predatory as she reviewed the hospital's findings. Falsifying evidence in a legal proceeding, your brother just added felony charges to his resume. Uncle Thomas had been quiet throughout the morning, but now he stood with determined purpose. There's something else you need to know. I wasn't just passive during Carl's ordeal. I gathered evidence but was too scared to use it. Until now. He retrieved a safe from his closet, spinning the combination with practiced ease. Inside lay documents, photographs, and what appeared to be audio cassettes. 20 years of Harrison Wells' crimes, he said simply. Financial records showing kickbacks from facilities, bribes to judges, even a confession from Morrison about falsifying diagnoses. I've been waiting for the right moment to use this. Why now? I asked. Because I failed Carl. I won't fail you. His eyes glistened with unshed tears. And because I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer stage 4. I've got maybe 6 months left. Might as well use them for something worthwhile. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Thomas, my unexpected ally, was fighting his own battle while championing mine. We're going to destroy them, I said fiercely. For Carl, for you, for everyone they've hurt. Then we'd better get to court, Amanda said, loading evidence boxes into her car. We've got a conspiracy to unravel. The courthouse loomed before us like a fortress. Media vans lined the street, Jake's public campaign having attracted attention to what should have been a private hearing. Protesters held signs demanding justice for the children and remove dangerous nurses. Inside, my family packed the gallery. Parents, grandparents, cousins, and relatives I hadn't seen in years all wore matching concerned expressions. Jake sat at the petitioner's table, looking appropriately worried, while Harrison Wells adjusted his expensive suit with practiced confidence. Ready, Amanda whispered as we took our seats. Born ready. I replied, channeling every ounce of strength from years of working emergency medicine. Judge Newcomb entered her expression, revealing nothing as she reviewed the petition. This is a matter of Parker versus Parker regarding emergency conservatorship. Mr. Wells, you may begin. Harrison stood with theatrical gravity. Your Honor, we're here because a family is watching their beloved daughter destroy herself. Robin Parker, once a promising nurse, has descended into paranoid delusions, violent threats, and dangerous behavior that risks not only her own safety, but that of innocent patients. He presented his case with polish, each piece of manufactured evidence delivered with convincing sincerity. The fake medical records, the dating profiles, the concerned witness statements. He painted a picture of a woman spiraling into madness, saved only by her family's loving intervention. Ms. Parker has accused her brother of elaborate conspiracies, threatened restraining orders against her parents, and exhibited classic signs of paranoid personality disorder. Harrison continued. Her family seeks only to protect her from herself while ensuring she receives proper treatment. Jake testified next, tears streaming as he described my transformation from loving sister to delusional stranger. My parents followed Mom sobbing about losing her daughter to mental illness, Dad stoically requesting the court's help in saving me. The performance was Oscar-worthy. If I hadn't lived the truth, I might have believed it myself. Then Amanda rose and the atmosphere shifted. Your Honor, what we have here is not a mental health crisis, but a criminal conspiracy. The respondent will prove that every piece of evidence presented is fabricated, that the petitioners have engaged in elder abuse fraud and attempted theft, and that Mr. Wells himself has orchestrated similar schemes for 20 years. Harrison's confident mask slipped slightly. Objection. Ms. Chen is making outrageous accusations without foundation. Then let me provide foundation, Amanda replied smoothly. I call Elena Rodriguez to the stand. Elena's testimony began quietly but gained strength as she detailed Jake's systematic isolation of Margaret, the drugging, the financial theft. She produced her logs, the security footage, even photos of Jake practicing his concerned brother act. He told me once, Elena said, looking directly at Jake, that Robin was too independent for her own good, that she needed to learn her place in the family hierarchy. Next came the hospital witnesses. David from security explained the doctored footage. Patricia testified about Jake's manipulation. Dr. Williams presented her evaluation demolishing any claim of mental illness with professional precision. But the killing blow came when Amanda introduced Carl's evidence. Your Honor, I present 20 years of documentation showing Mr. Wells' pattern of conservatorship abuse. Box after box of evidence entered the record, including this audio recording of Mr. Wells discussing how to, quote, break individuals who resist family financial planning. Harrison's face went white as his own voice filled the courtroom, describing tactics identical to those used against me. Jake jumped up. This is ridiculous. They're making things up. Sit down, Mr. Parker, Judge Newcomb commanded. Ms. Chen, do you have evidence specifically related to this case? I do. Amanda presented the email threads Sarah had discovered, the fraudulent debt spreadsheet, Jake's messages about establishing residency. But most damning, Your Honor, is this. She played security footage from my house showing Jake and Harrison meeting 3 weeks before the conservatorship filing, discussing how to handle Robin and secure the assets. That's privileged communication, Harrison protested. You're not his attorney, Amanda countered. You're his co-conspirator. The courtroom erupted. My mother fainted. My father shouted about entrapment. Jake lunged toward me but was restrained by bailiffs. Judge Newcomb banged her gavel repeatedly. Order, I've seen enough. Not only am I denying the petition for conservatorship, but I'm referring this entire matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Your Honor, Harrison began. Mr. Wells, you're lucky I don't have you arrested right now. Consider yourself under investigation. As for you, Mr. Parker, she fixed Jake with a steely glare. Stay away from your sister. Any contact will result in immediate arrest. What about my house? Jake demanded. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, Judge Newcomb replied. I suggest you use it. As the courtroom cleared, my family's unified front crumbled. Relatives who'd come to support them whispered among themselves, realizing they'd been duped. My parents huddled with Harrison, desperately planning damage control. Elena approached me tearfully. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. You spoke up when it mattered most, I assured her. What about your family? Jake's threats. Ms. Chen arranged protection, she said, and I've got a new job lined up in another state. It's time for a fresh start. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy had shifted. Reporters who'd come to cover a dangerous nurse story now had a family conspiracy scandal. Jake tried to slip out a side door but was met by investigators wanting to discuss elder abuse charges. We won, Sarah breathed, hugging me tightly. The legal battle, Amanda corrected. The war's not over. Harrison's connected, your family's desperate, and Jake's facing prison. Cornered animals are dangerous. But for the moment, standing in the spring sunshine with allies who'd fought for truth over blood, I felt something I'd lost weeks ago, hope. My phone buzzed with messages from colleagues celebrating the news, offering support, welcoming me back whenever I was ready. The life my family tried to destroy was already rebuilding stronger for having survived the assault. "What now?" Thomas asked, looking frailer but more at peace than I'd ever seen him. "Now we make sure Margaret's safe, that Jake faces justice, and that Harrison never does this to another family." "And your parents?" I watched them exit the courthouse, their heads down, their perfect family image shattered. They made their choice. They chose their golden child over truth. Now they get to live with the consequences. As we walked away from the battlefield, I realized the little girl who desperately sought their approval had finally died in that courtroom. In her place stood a woman who understood that real family wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about the people who stood with you when the world tried to break you, and by that measure, I was richer than I'd ever imagined. Saturday morning brought an impromptu war council to Thomas's dining room. Amanda arrived with fresh intelligence, her expression grim but determined. "Harrison's already working damage control," she announced, spreading documents across the table. "He's filed motions to seal the court records claiming privacy concerns, and Jake hired a new lawyer, someone from Harrison's network." "Can they bury this?" I asked, anxiety creeping back. "Not entirely, but they can muddy the waters enough to avoid criminal charges if we're not careful." Amanda pulled out her phone. "Which is why I've been busy. Meet Marcus Rodriguez, the assistant DA assigned to the case." The video call connected to a serious-faced man in his 30s. "Ms. Parker, I've reviewed the evidence from yesterday's hearing. It's substantial, but I need more to guarantee convictions. Elder abuse fraud conspiracy. These are serious charges that require airtight cases." "What do you need?" Thomas asked. "Financial records primarily, proof that Jake accessed Margaret's accounts, evidence of Harrison's kickback scheme, documentation of the property theft attempt. The testimony yesterday was powerful, but I need paper trails." "I can help with that," a new voice said from Thomas's doorway. We turned to see Beth Jake's ex-wife holding banker's boxes. "Sorry for showing up unannounced, but I heard about yesterday's hearing. It's time I shared what I've been hiding." She set the boxes on the table with visible relief. 7 years of Jake's financial crimes. Every forged check, every identity theft, every scam he ran during our marriage. I kept it all thinking someday I'd need protection. "Why didn't you use it during your divorce?" Sarah asked. "He threatened to claim I was an accomplice. Said he'd drag me down with him. I had nothing then, no support, no evidence he was lying. So I ran." Beth's voice hardened. "But hearing he tried the same thing with Robin. That ends now." I opened the first box, finding meticulous records of Jake's past schemes. "This is extensive. He practiced on me before perfecting it for you," Beth explained. "Started small, forging my signature on credit applications, then bigger, trying to add himself to my grandmother's will. The house theft. He attempted that with my condo. I sold it secretly and fled before he could file legal claims." "This establishes pattern for multiple victims," Marcus said through the screen. "Beth, would you testify?" "Gladly, but there's more. That cousin Emma he supposedly scammed in another state. She's my friend. He didn't steal her condo. She helped me escape. We've been documenting Jake's crimes together for years, waiting for someone with resources to fight back." "How many victims are there?" Amanda asked. "At least 12 that we know of. Ex-girlfriends, distant relatives, even a few employers. Jake's been running variations of this scam since college. Small enough to avoid major prosecution, devastating enough to ruin lives." Thomas had been quiet, studying the financial documents. "These bank routing numbers, they match offshore accounts Harrison used in Carl's case. They're connected." "A network," Marcus concluded. "This isn't just family dysfunction. It's organized crime. I need to expand this investigation." "Which means we need protection," Amanda said. "They'll escalate when they realize the scope of exposure." As if summoned by her words, my phone rang. "Mom!" "Don't answer," Sarah warned. But I was done running. Hello, Mother. How could you? Her voice was raw, hysterical. Jake's being investigated. Harrison says he could face 20 years in prison. You've destroyed our family. Jake destroyed our family when he chose crime over honesty. He made mistakes. We all have, but you don't send family to prison. I didn't send him anywhere. His own actions did that. You vindictive little... She caught herself. We're having an emergency family meeting tomorrow. You'll attend and fix this mess. I'm not coming to any meeting where you plot to obstruct justice. Then you're no longer my daughter. The words came out cold final. You're cut off, disowned, dead to us. When Jake goes to prison, his blood is on your hands. Jake's blood has always been on his own hands. You just refuse to see the stains. She hung up. I set the phone down with surprisingly steady hands. You okay? Sarah asked gently. Actually, yes. She finally said out loud what they've felt for years. I'm not their daughter. I'm their resource. And resources that can't be exploited get discarded. Their loss, Thomas said firmly. Now let's focus on building an airtight case. Emma joined us via video call from Nevada, adding her evidence to our growing arsenal. Jake dated my roommate in college, she explained. Even then he was running small cons, selling fake concert tickets, claiming to need emergency loans. We started tracking him as a joke, then realized he was genuinely dangerous. 20 years of documentation, Marcus marveled. This is enough to invoke RICO statutes. We're looking at a criminal enterprise. What about Margaret? I asked. She's still vulnerable. Already handled, Thomas said. Adult Protective Services removed her from the home this morning. She's in a secure facility pending evaluation. And guess what they found? Jake had power of attorney documents with forged signatures. He was planning to take everything, Beth said quietly, just like he always does. By afternoon, our dining room resembled a legal command center. Amanda coordinated with Marcus Thomas, reached out to other victims. Beth and Emma compiled master lists of Jake's schemes. I felt oddly detached watching my brother's criminal empire unravel through spreadsheets and evidence logs. Robin, Amanda called. The hospital wants to meet Monday. Full reinstatement with back pay, plus they're considering a defamation suit against Jake for the false allegations. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. As evening approached, an unexpected visitor arrived, Cousin Michael, who'd been at Grandma's meeting. I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. I knew something was off with Jake's story, but the inheritance... He trailed off, ashamed. They used money to buy silence, I said. I understand. No, you don't. I have something that might help. He pulled out his phone. I recorded Grandma's meeting. Thought it might protect my interests, but listening back, Harrison coached everyone. Listen. The recording was damning. Harrison directing relatives on what to say. Jake promising increased inheritance shares for cooperation. My parents strategizing the ambush. Most shocking was Margaret's voice between takes. Are you sure this is right? Robin's always been good to me. Grandma's not fully complicit, I breathed. She's another victim. The deepest cut. Thomas agreed. They used her love as a weapon. Marcus had stayed on video throughout the day taking notes. This recording is gold. Conspiracy, coercion, elder manipulation. Monday morning, we arrest them all. All I asked. Jake Harrison and yes, your parents. They're named co-conspirators in multiple schemes. The finality hit hard. Despite everything, some part of me had hoped my parents were merely misguided, but the evidence showed calculated cruelty spanning months. Will you be okay? Beth asked, recognizing my struggle. I'll have to be. They made their choices. We all did, Thomas said. The difference is we chose truth over comfort. That's not easy, but it's right. As the team dispersed for the evening, Sarah lingered. You know this changes everything. Your family, your relationships, your future. My family was a lie, my relationship was conditional, and my future was never really mine until now. I looked around Thomas's home filled with chosen allies instead of blood relatives. Maybe losing everything was the only way to find what actually matters. Philosophical for someone whose life just exploded. or rebuilt, depends on perspective. My phone buzzed with messages from extended family, some supportive, others hostile, most confused. The Parker family empire was crumbling, and everyone scrambled to choose sides. But I was done with sides, done with family politics, done with purchasing love through compliance. Tomorrow would bring new battles, more revelations, continued pain. But tonight, surrounded by evidence of truth and supported by people who fought for justice over genetics, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Freedom. The kind that comes not from winning, but from refusing to play rigged games anymore. Jake wanted my house, but he'd given me something more valuable: clarity about who deserved space in my life. And that list was shorter, but infinitely more precious than I'd ever imagined. 2 weeks later, Grandmother Margaret's 85th birthday arrived with all the pomp the Parker family could muster. Despite the ongoing investigation, my parents had insisted on proceeding with the celebration, desperate to maintain appearances. The country club ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and elaborate floral arrangements, a facade of perfection hiding the rot beneath. I stood outside with Amanda and Thomas, finalizing our strategy. Margaret had been released from protective custody after medical evaluation confirmed elder abuse, but my parents had convinced her to attend the party, promising family reconciliation. "You sure about this?" Amanda asked, reviewing the presentation loaded on my tablet. "They want to pretend nothing happened. I won't let them rewrite history." "The media's already inside," Thomas noted. "Your parents invited half the city's elite. They're hoping public pressure will force you to play nice." Then they're about to learn what public pressure really means. We entered through the main doors, heads turning as whispers rippled through the crowd. My mother stood near the entrance in designer navy, her smile fracturing when she saw me. "You weren't invited," she hissed under her breath. "Grandmother requested my presence," I replied calmly. "Or did Jake intercept that message too?" Her face flushed, but with photographers nearby, she couldn't respond. We moved past her toward Margaret, who sat at the head table looking fragile but alert. Her eyes brightened when she saw me. "Robin, my dear girl, come sit with me." I kissed her cheek, noting how Jake tensed at the next table. He was flanked by his new lawyer and several relatives, all wearing matching expressions of false concern. The party proceeded with forced gaiety. Speeches praised Margaret's generosity, her dedication to family, her legacy of love. Each word felt like another coat of paint over crumbling walls. Finally, my father stood to introduce the family history presentation I'd supposedly prepared. "Robin has created something special for Mother's birthday." He announced his tone, warning me to behave. "A tribute to the Parker family values." I took the microphone with steady hands. "Thank you, Dad. I have indeed prepared something special. A complete and honest look at what the Parker family has become." The first slides appeared innocuous enough: baby photos, holiday gatherings, family milestones. The audience relaxed, thinking I'd capitulated. Then the presentation shifted. 3 months ago, I narrated, my brother Jake announced he was moving into my house. When I revealed I'd sold it, this is what happened. Security footage played on the massive screen. Jake breaking into my home, the parties, the theft, the conspiracy meetings with Harrison Wells. Gasps echoed through the ballroom as respected community members watched their golden boy revealed as a criminal. "Stop this!" my mother shrieked, rushing toward the projection equipment. Security intercepted her as I continued. But breaking and entering was just the beginning. Here's Jake discussing how to steal my home through fraud. Email threads filled the screen. The forged medical records, the doctored hospital footage, the dating profiles created to destroy my relationship. Each piece of evidence methodically presented to 200 of the city's most influential people. Jake stood, his face purple. "Those are fake. She's having another episode." "Then let's ask the assistant district attorney," I said calmly as Marcus entered with several officers. "Mr. Rodriguez, are these documents fake?" "No, Ms. Parker. They're evidence in an ongoing criminal investigation." He nodded to the officers. "Jake Parker, you're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy." The room erupted as officers handcuffed Jake. He screamed about setups and family betrayal, while photographers captured every moment. Harrison Wells tried to slip out, but found more officers waiting. "This isn't over," Harrison shouted as they led him away. "I'll destroy all of you." "You already tried," I replied. "How'd that work out?" But I wasn't done. The presentation continued, now showing the financial exploitation of Margaret. Forged signatures, stolen funds, the drugging documented by hidden cameras. Margaret stood shakily, her voice carrying surprising strength. "I need to say something. For months I believed lies about Robin. I let myself be poisoned against my own granddaughter by a grandson who saw me as nothing but a bank account." She turned to my parents. "And you knew. You helped him. You chose greed over truth, manipulation over love. I may be old, but I'm not stupid. Not anymore." "Mother, please," my father begged. "We were trying to help Jake find his way. By destroying Robin, by stealing from me, by turning family into a criminal enterprise." Margaret's voice rose. "I've rewritten my will. Robin inherits everything. The rest of you get exactly what you've earned, nothing." The announcement sent relatives into hysteria. Cousins who'd supported Jake suddenly remembered prior commitments. Aunts and uncles scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal. The party dissolved into chaos as society reporters typed furiously on phones. Through it all, my mother stood frozen, watching her carefully constructed world collapse on live social media. The Parker family name, once synonymous with respectability, now meant fraud and abuse. "You've ruined us," she whispered when she finally found her voice. "Generations of reputation destroyed." "You ruined yourselves," I corrected. "I just refuse to hide it anymore." Thomas stepped forward and I noticed how many people drew back from him. "Since we're sharing truths," he announced, "let me add mine. 20 years ago, this family destroyed my brother Carl the same way they tried to destroy Robin. I stayed silent then. Not anymore." He began distributing copies of Carl's evidence to reporters, financial records, medical fraud. Harrison's entire network laid bare for public consumption. "The Parker family has been a criminal organization for decades," Thomas declared, "using love as leverage, family as camouflage, destroying anyone who refused to comply. It ends today." Security footage from Carl's institutionalization played on screen, his pleas for help, his accurate accusations dismissed as delusions, the systematic theft of his assets while he was forcibly medicated. Several relatives fled the room, recognizing their own complicity. Marcus addressed the remaining crowd. "The district attorney's office has opened investigations into everyone involved in these schemes. If you've participated in or witnessed financial elder abuse, fraud, or conspiracy, I suggest you contact our office immediately. Cooperation will be considered during charging decisions." The stampede for exits began. Society matrons who'd arrived in diamonds left in disgrace. Business leaders who'd partnered with my father distanced themselves publicly. The Parker empire collapsed in real-time broadcast across every social platform. Beth and Emma emerged from the crowd, having quietly documented reactions throughout the reveal. "We got everything," Beth confirmed, including several relatives admitting to similar schemes in their own families. "How deep does this go?" a reporter asked. "We're still determining that," Marcus replied. "But initial investigations suggest a network spanning multiple states and decades." As officers led more relatives away, I found myself standing with Margaret, both of us surveying the wreckage of our family. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I should have seen through their lies sooner. You were drugged and manipulated. That's not your fault. But choosing to believe them over you was." She gripped my hand with surprising strength. "Can you forgive a foolish old woman?" "There's nothing to forgive. You were a victim too." "No more," she said firmly. "Thomas has agreed to help me rebuild properly. Ethical investments, charitable foundations, using wealth to help instead of harm." My parents made one last attempt to approach, but officers blocked them. "Robin, please," my mother called out. "We're still your parents." "No." I said clearly. Parents protect their children. You tried to destroy me. You're just two more criminals facing justice. As we left the destroyed party, news vans already lined the country club entrance. The Parker family scandal would dominate headlines for weeks. Former friends distanced themselves. Former enemies reached out with support. The entire social structure of my life inverted overnight. Regrets? Amanda asked as we drove away. I thought about it honestly. No, living a lie was killing me slowly. At least this death is clean. And the resurrection? Thomas asked from the back seat. Built on truth this time, with people who earn their place through loyalty, not blood. My phone buzzed with messages. Patricia from the hospital offering full reinstatement with a promotion. Daniel begging to talk, claiming he'd been fooled. Relatives alternately threatening and pleading. I turned it off. What now? Sarah asked. Now we rebuild. Honestly, ethically, without the poison of family expectations. I looked at my chosen family in the car. Think we can manage that? Together, Thomas smiled despite his exhaustion. We can manage anything. As the country club faded behind us, I felt the last chains of obligation snap. The Parker family, as I'd known it, was dead, destroyed by its own greed. But from its ashes, something better could grow. Something real. The weeks following Margaret's birthday massacre, as the media dubbed it, brought a parade of relatives to my door. Each carried their own version of history, their own justifications, their own desperate attempts to rewrite their roles in the family tragedy. Uncle Richard arrived first, my father's brother, who'd always played the neutral party. He stood on my porch in an expensive suit that suddenly looked cheap, his usual confidence replaced by visible anxiety. Robin, we need to talk about the situation. He began refusing to meet my eyes. You mean the criminal investigation into our family's decades of fraud? He flinched. It wasn't like that. We were just trying to help each other succeed. By destroying anyone who wouldn't participate in the schemes, that's Harrison's doing, not ours. We were just trying to protect family interests. I laughed bitterly. Protect, is that what you called it when you helped Jake forge those tenant documents? Oh yes, I know about that. Your signature is on the witness line. Richard's face drained of color. How did you... Because unlike this family, I pay attention to details. The forensic accountant found your involvement in 3 other schemes. Want to come in and discuss your plea deal options? He fled without another word. Next came Aunt Catherine, my mother's sister, who'd always prided herself on being the family moral compass. She brought homemade cookies, as if baked goods could sweeten the bitter truth. I had no idea Jake was so troubled, she said, settling into my living room like she belonged there. If I'd known what he was planning... You did know, I interrupted. You were at the meeting where they discussed putting me in a conservatorship. You signed the petition supporting it. I thought you needed help. Your mother was so worried and Jake seemed so caring. Jake seemed caring while drugging our grandmother. Catherine twisted her hands. We didn't know about that part. No, you just knew about the part where you get a bigger inheritance if I was declared incompetent. I pulled out the email Marcus had shared. This is you, isn't it? Asking Harrison how much you'd receive if the conservatorship succeeded. She grabbed her purse and left without touching the cookies. The parade continued for days. Cousins who'd gossiped about my mental breakdown now claimed they'd always suspected Jake. Relatives who'd supported the intervention suddenly remembered urgent business elsewhere. Each visitor rewrote history to cast themselves as innocent bystanders rather than willing participants. Then came the most surprising visitor, Cousin Michael's wife, Jennifer, whom I'd barely spoken to in years. I'm not here to make excuses, she said quietly. I'm here to apologize and offer evidence. I let her in cautiously. Jennifer had always seemed peripheral to family dynamics, the quiet spouse who smiled at gatherings but rarely engaged. I've been documenting everything for 15 years. She began pulling out external hard drives. Every scheme, every victim, every family meeting where they planned these attacks. I knew someday someone would need proof. Why didn't you speak up sooner? Because I was protecting my children. Michael was deep in the family business. If I'd exposed them, we'd have been the next targets. But when I saw what they did to you, she shook her head. I couldn't stay silent anymore. The drives contained thousands of files, audio recordings of family meetings planning financial manipulations, videos of Jake practicing his cons, financial documents showing the full scope of the Parker family criminal enterprise. This goes back to our grandparents' generation, Jennifer explained. The construction company Grandpa built, founded on insurance fraud and bid rigging. The family fortune built on decades of white-collar crime disguised as business acumen. How deep was Michael involved? He wanted out after Carl, but your father threatened to destroy us if we left. So Michael stayed quiet, took his cut, and drank himself to sleep every night. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I'm leaving him. Taking the kids somewhere the Parker name means nothing. But first, I wanted you to have this. You deserve the whole truth. As Jennifer left, Sarah arrived with Marcus and Amanda. We spent hours reviewing the new evidence, each revelation more damning than the last. This implicates 43 family members across 4 generations, Marcus said, visibly stunned. We're going to need a task force. The construction company alone. Amanda added, fraudulent contracts worth millions. Your family didn't just commit crimes, they industrialized them. My phone rang. Margaret. Robin, I need you here, she said, voice trembling. Something's happened. We rushed to the secure facility where she was staying. Margaret sat in her room surrounded by boxes of letters and photographs. The staff helped me go through my things, she explained, looking for more evidence. We found these. She handed me a stack of letters, my handwriting, my words, all the correspondence Jake claimed never arrived. He kept them, I asked, confused. No, I kept them. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I received every letter, every gift, every gesture of love you sent. I remember now. But Jake would visit afterward, convince me they were forgeries, that you were trying to manipulate me. The drugs made me suggestible, but some part of me couldn't throw them away. So you hid them. In my jewelry box, my book safe, places Jake wouldn't think to look. Some part of me knew they were real even when my mind was clouded. She clutched my hand. You never abandoned me. I abandoned you by choosing to believe lies over love. You were drugged, Grandma, manipulated by people you trusted. That's no excuse. I should have been stronger, should have questioned why Jake suddenly cared so much after years of indifference. She pulled out another box. Security bonds, property deeds, investment portfolios, all in Jake's name, all obtained with forged signatures. He didn't just want your house, Robin. He was systematically stealing everything I owned. Marcus immediately began documenting the new evidence. This elevates the charges to organized crime. Jake wasn't just a con artist. He was building a criminal empire using family as cover. That evening, the local news led with breaking developments in the Parker family scandal. Footage showed FBI agents raiding the family construction business, carrying out boxes of evidence. My father was arrested at his golf club, hauled away in handcuffs while his former friends watched. My mother was taken from her book club, her society mask finally shattered. More relatives fell like dominoes. Uncle Richard arrested for money laundering, Aunt Catherine for tax fraud, cousins implicated in various schemes. The Parker family tree became a prosecution flowchart. Through it all, Jake remained in custody, his bail denied due to flight risk. I received one call from him, which I answered on speaker with my lawyer present. You happy now? His voice was raw, desperate. You've destroyed everything Grandpa built. Grandpa built his empire on crime. I just exposed the foundation. We're family. You don't do this to family. Family doesn't drug grandmothers or steal houses or destroy careers. You did this to yourself. When I get out, you're not getting out, Jake. The evidence is overwhelming. Multiple victims across multiple states. You're looking at decades in prison. This isn't over, he snarled. You think you've won. You've got nothing left. No family, no support system, no... I hung up. He was wrong. I had everything that mattered: truth, integrity, and people who loved me without calculating my value. The investigation expanded daily. Jennifer's evidence led to more discoveries. Beth connected investigators with other victims. Emma provided documentation spanning years. Thomas, despite his declining health, worked tirelessly to ensure no stone remained unturned. One evening, as we sorted through evidence at Thomas's house, he made an observation that stopped me cold. You know what the saddest part is? They had everything. Wealth, status, opportunities. They could have been a real family supporting each other honestly. Instead, they chose crime and called it love. He was right. The Parker family had every advantage, every opportunity to build something genuine. Instead, they'd constructed an elaborate criminal enterprise and demanded loyalty to lies. Maybe that's their real crime, I said. Not the fraud or theft, but the perversion of family into a weapon. They made love transactional support, conditional and belonging contingent on compliance. Then we build better, Sarah said firmly. We create the family they should have been. Looking around the room at my chosen family, I realized we already had. Thomas, the uncle who chose truth over comfort. Sarah, the friend who became a sister. Amanda, the protector who fought for justice. Beth and Emma, the survivors who refused to stay silent. Even Jennifer, the unexpected ally who risked everything for truth. This was a family, not bound by blood but by choice, not demanding compliance but offering support, not perfect but honest. The Parker name would forever be associated with scandal. The family fortune would be dissolved in restitution. The legacy of generations would end in criminal convictions. But from those ashes, something new grew. Something built on truth instead of lies, choice instead of obligation, love instead of manipulation. The Parker crime family was dead. Long live the family we chose to become. 6 months after Margaret's birthday revelation, the federal courthouse in downtown became the stage for the final act of the Parker family drama. Media vans lined the streets as reporters from national outlets covered what prosecutors called the most extensive family criminal enterprise in state history. I sat in the witness waiting room reviewing my testimony one last time. Amanda sat beside me, her presence steady and reassuring. "Remember," she said, "just tell the truth. Their lawyers will try to paint you as vindictive, mentally unstable, motivated by inheritance. Don't let them rattle you." 43 defendants, I murmured, looking at the case list, including my parents. Including 23 who pled guilty for reduced sentences. Your evidence made this possible, Robin. Without your courage, they'd still be operating. The bailiff called my name. I entered the packed courtroom, avoiding eye contact with the defendants' tables, where my family sat in their prison uniforms. Jake had lost weight, his golden boy charm replaced by hollow desperation. My parents looked aged beyond their years, their perfect facades crumbled. Harrison Wells sat separately, his expensive legal team unable to hide his fury. "State your name for the record," the prosecutor began. "Robin Elizabeth Parker." For 3 hours, I testified. Every scheme, every threat, every moment of betrayal laid bare in clinical detail. I presented the security footage, the forged documents, the evidence of drugging. I explained how they'd tried to steal my home, destroy my career, have me committed. Jake's lawyer, a sharp-dressed man who specialized in hopeless cases, began his cross-examination with theatrical sympathy. "Miss Parker, this must be very difficult, testifying against your own family. What's difficult is discovering your family is a criminal organization. Isn't it true you've always resented your brother Jake? I've always resented theft and fraud. That Jake specialized in both is his choice, not mine. You stand to inherit millions from your grandmother now. Convenient, wouldn't you say? What's convenient is how Jake stood to inherit millions by drugging her. I exposed the crime. There's a difference." He tried another angle. "Your family claims you've suffered from mental health issues, that this is all an elaborate delusion. My family claimed many things. They also forged documents, committed fraud, and are now facing federal charges. I'll let the jury decide who's delusional. The prosecutor presented Jennifer's recordings next. The courtroom fell silent as Jake's voice filled the space, bragging about his schemes, laughing about victims planning escalation. My parents' voices followed coordinating lies, discussing how to handle me, calculating the value of stealing my assets. Just a family trying to help, Jake had said. The recording revealed the truth: predators planning their next hunt. Thomas testified despite his declining health, his testimony powerful in its quiet dignity. He detailed Carl's destruction, the family's pattern of abuse, the decades of evidence he'd collected. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" the prosecutor asked. "Cowardice," Thomas replied simply. "Fear, shame. I failed Carl by staying silent. I refused to fail Robin the same way." Beth and Emma testified via video link, protected witnesses who detailed Jake's history of fraud across multiple states. Their evidence connected him to 12 other victims, establishing the interstate pattern that made this a federal case. Elena took the stand next, describing the elder abuse in heartbreaking detail. The drugging, the isolation, the systematic theft. She produced her logs, the security footage proof of Jake's calculated cruelty toward his own grandmother. "He called her a gold mine," Elena testified. "Said old people were easy marks because no one believed them when they complained." Margaret herself testified with quiet strength, acknowledging her role as both victim and unwitting accomplice. "I let them poison me against Robin," she said, looking directly at me. "Not just with drugs, but with lies. I chose to believe comfortable falsehoods over uncomfortable truths. That's my shame to carry." The defense presented their case. Mental health experts paid handsomely who suggested I suffered from various disorders. Character witnesses, mostly relatives, hoping for leniency, who painted the family as loving but misguided financial experts who tried to minimize the scope of theft. Harrison Wells took the stand in his own defense, his arrogance intact, despite mounting evidence. "This is a family dispute blown out of proportion," he insisted. "I merely provided legal counsel." The prosecutor destroyed him with documentation, kickbacks from facilities, forged medical records, 16 previous conservatorship cases with identical patterns. Wells left the stand looking smaller, older, defeated. My parents testified last, their strategy apparently to plead loving ignorance. "We just wanted our children to succeed," my mother sobbed. "If we made mistakes, they came from love." "Is forging documents love?" the prosecutor asked. "Is theft love? Is attempting to have your daughter institutionalized love?" "We were concerned about her mental state. So concerned you created fake evidence of mental illness." My father tried stoicism. "Families help each other. Maybe we went too far, but our intentions were good." "Your intentions were to steal your daughter's assets. Your methods were criminal. Your execution was conspiracy." The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, the forewoman stood with visible disgust as she read verdict after verdict. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 43 times the word echoed through the courtroom. Jake convicted on all counts: fraud, elder abuse, identity, theft, conspiracy. My parents guilty of conspiracy, fraud, attempted theft. Harrison Wells guilty of racketeering, fraud, conspiracy spanning decades. Sentencing came 2 months later. Jake received 25 years federal time. My parents each got 10 years. Harrison Wells, whose crimes spanned the longest, received 30 years, effectively a life sentence at his age. Other relatives received varying sentences based on involvement. Some got probation for minor roles. Others faced years in prison for active participation. The Parker family criminal enterprise officially died in that courtroom. As the sentences were read, I felt no joy, only relief. Justice had been served, but at the cost of a family I'd once loved, despite their flaws. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I'd prepared a statement with Amanda's help. Today, justice prevailed over blood loyalty. No family bond excuses criminal behavior. No love justifies abuse. I hope this case helps other victims realize that speaking truth isn't betrayal, it's liberation. What's next for you? A reporter asked. Healing, building, living without fear for the first time in my life. Marcus approached as the crowd dispersed. The asset forfeiture is complete. All criminal proceeds will go to victims and restitution. Your grandmother's legitimate assets remain protected for her care and your inheritance. I don't care about the money. I know, that's what makes you different from them. That evening, my chosen family gathered at Thomas's house for a quiet celebration. Thomas himself was in hospice care now, but insisted on hosting one last gathering. We did it, he said from his hospital bed they'd set up in the living room. Carl can rest now. You did it, I corrected. Your courage started this. Our courage, he insisted. All of us who refused to stay silent. Beth had flown in for the sentencing, her new life in Seattle suiting her. Jake called me from prison, she said, still claiming he's the victim. Some people never learn. Emma joined by video raising a glass from Nevada. To the survivors, may we build better lives on honest foundations. Sarah produced champagne. To Robin, who showed us that family isn't about DNA, it's about showing up when it matters. To all of us, I countered, for choosing truth over comfort. As we toasted, I thought about the empty chairs at future holiday tables, the silent phones on birthdays, the family photos I'd never take. The losses were real and would echo through years. But looking around Thomas's living room at faces who'd fought beside me, who'd risked their own safety for truth, who'd chosen justice over blood, I understood something fundamental. I hadn't lost a family. I'd escaped a crime syndicate. And in fighting free, I'd found something infinitely more precious: people who loved me without calculating my value, supported me without demanding compliance, and stood by me when standing alone would have been easier. The Parker crime family was dead buried under federal convictions and shattered reputations, but the family I'd chosen, we were just beginning. What now? Jennifer asked. She'd divorced Michael and started fresh her evidence crucial to the convictions. Now we live, I said simply, honestly, freely, without fear of the next scheme or manipulation. The best revenge, Thomas murmured, already half asleep from medication. The only revenge worth having, I agreed. As the evening wound down, I stepped outside for air. The stars shone clear above, no longer hidden by the smoke of family lies. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Rebuilding careers, managing inherited wealth, responsibly creating boundaries with relatives who'd escape prosecution but not suspicion. But tonight, surrounded by my chosen family with justice served and truth triumphant, I felt something I'd never experienced in 32 years of blood family dynamics. Peace. The war was over. We'd won by refusing to fight on their terms. And now, finally, we could build something real on the ruins of what should never have been. 2 weeks after the sentencing, I stood in my kitchen preparing for the final revelation. Sarah, Amanda, and Thomas, who insisted on attending despite hospice recommendations, gathered around my dining table. The same table where Jake had announced his plans to steal my home 8 months ago. You all deserve to know the complete truth. I began pulling out a folder marked contingency plan in my handwriting. The house sale wasn't fake. I really did sell this house the week before that dinner. Sarah nearly choked on her coffee. What? But you still live here? Because I sold it to myself. Well, technically to an LLC I created called Fresh Start Holdings. I spread the documents across the table. I knew Jake was planning something when he started asking about tenant rights. His patterns were too obvious, so I prepared. Amanda studied the paperwork with professional interest. This is brilliant. Legally airtight transfer that protects the asset from any family claims while maintaining your control. When did you do this? Thomas asked, impressed despite his weakness. The day after I discovered Jake using my spare key. I met with a property lawyer Sarah didn't even know about. Created the LLC, transferred the deed, made it look like a standard sale to an investment company. The closing documents you showed at dinner were real, Sarah breathed. You weren't bluffing. Never bluff when you can tell the truth creatively. Jake thought he'd corner me by announcing his move publicly. Instead, he revealed his entire scheme while I held all the cards. I pulled up financial records on my laptop. But it goes deeper. Remember when I said I was visiting Aunt Patricia in Phoenix? I was actually setting up a complete exit strategy. New job offers at 3 different children's hospitals, investment accounts Jake couldn't trace, even a rental property in Colorado as a backup plan. You knew it would get this bad, Thomas asked. I suspected. Growing up in this family taught me to hope for the best but prepare for the worst. When Jake escalated from entitled to criminal, I escalated from defensive to strategic. Why didn't you tell us? Sarah looked hurt. Because you'd have tried to talk me out of it. Told me I was being paranoid that family wouldn't go that far. I needed you to react genuinely to the revelation. Your shock had to be real for the plan to work. So when Jake sent that threat about already being in your house, he was trespassing on property owned by an LLC, added another felony to his collection. I smiled grimly. Every move he made thinking he was ahead, he was actually digging deeper into my trap. Amanda laughed the sound bright in my kitchen. You played 4-dimensional chess while he was playing checkers. I learned from the best. This family taught me that love was transactional, trust was weakness, and everyone had an angle. So I developed my own angle survival through superior planning. The Colorado property, Thomas mused. You're leaving. Eventually, I've accepted a position at Denver Children's Hospital, Department Head of Pediatric Intensive Care. They were impressed by my resilience under pressure during the interview. I pulled up photos of a modest but beautiful house surrounded by mountains. Fresh start, new name professionally. I'll practice under my middle name and grandmother's maiden name, Elizabeth Sinclair. Robin Parker dies, Sarah's voice cracked. Robin Parker, the victim, dies. Robin, the person, just evolves. You'll all know where I am, but the Parker name that dies with the family reputation. When Thomas asked quietly, after? I squeezed his hand, understanding his unspoken concern. I'm not leaving until after. You deserve to have family with you, real family. What about the inheritance from Margaret? Amanda asked. Millions in assets, the estate. Already structured. The legitimate assets go into a charitable trust for pediatric health care. I'll take enough to live comfortably, invest wisely, and help other victims of family fraud. The rest funds something positive from all this pain. The Parker Family Foundation for Crime Victims, Sarah suggested sarcastically. The Carl Thomas Foundation for Family Fraud Survivors, I corrected. Thomas agreed to let me name it for both brothers who suffered. It'll help people escape what Carl couldn't. Thomas's eyes filled with tears. Carl would have loved that, turning pain into purpose. It's what you taught me. Don't just survive, transform. I walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood I'd called home. You know what's funny? Jake was right about one thing. This house was too big for one person. Not because I needed family to fill it, but because I was trying to build something large enough to hide from their dysfunction. And now, Amanda prompted, now I build something sized for the life I actually want. Not too big, not too small. Just enough for a woman who knows her worth, isn't measured in square footage or family approval. Will you tell them? Sarah asked. Your parents, Jake. They still think they almost got your house. Let them think whatever comforts them in prison. They're facing decades of consequences for their choices. Whether they know I outsmarted them is irrelevant. It's not irrelevant to me, Thomas said firmly. You beat them at their own game while maintaining your integrity. That matters. What matters is that it's over. The house protected the assets, secured the future planned. Everything they tried to steal was already safeguarded before they made their first move. Except your career, Amanda noted. The hospital damage was real. Was it? I pulled up an email from Patricia. Full reinstatement with promotion, glowing recommendations from every department, and a formal apology from the board. Turns out, standing up to criminal family members demonstrates exactly the kind of backbone they want in leadership. You're taking the Denver job anyway. Because I choose to, not because I have to. There's a difference between running away and walking towards something better. We spent the next hour going through the complete exit strategy. Every detail planned, every contingency, covered every possibility anticipated. The student had surpassed the criminal masters who'd trained her. "One question," Sarah said as we finished. "If Jake hadn't announced his move that night, what would you have done?" "Waited. He was always going to overplay his hand. Narcissists can't help but announce their victories prematurely." I closed the folder. But I had 12 different scenarios planned. The house announcement was just Plan C. 12 plans. Amanda shook her head. "That's not paranoia. That's experience with a criminal family. The best gift they ever gave me, the ability to see angles, anticipate betrayal, and prepare for war while hoping for peace. They created their own worst enemy when they taught me that love was conditional. I just learned to set better conditions. As my chosen family prepared to leave, each hugged me with new understanding. I hadn't just survived the Parker family, I'd outmaneuvered them using their own lessons against them. For what it's worth," Thomas said as I helped him to the car, "I think you've found the perfect balance. Smart enough to protect yourself, human enough to still care. That's rare." I had good teachers, both the criminals who showed me what not to be and the honest people who showed me what was possible. That night alone in my house, my truly owned, fully protected house, I walked through each room with new appreciation. Jake had wanted these walls. My parents had wanted this equity. The family had wanted this asset. But they'd never understood what made it valuable, not the structure or location or investment potential. The value lay in what it represented: independence earned through honest work sanctuary, created through personal effort, success achieved without exploitation. They could never have stolen that. Even if they'd taken the physical house, the real victory, building a life on my own terms, remained untouchable. I pulled out my phone and composed one final message to Jake through the prison email system. "You were right. Family should take care of family. That's why I'm using the inheritance to help victims of family fraud. Thank you for the inspiration. Your sister, Robin." Then I blocked the account, cutting the last digital tie to the Parker crime family. Tomorrow I'd begin the logistics of moving. New city, new name, professionally, new life built on truth instead of manipulation. But tonight I sat in my protected sanctuary and felt the kind of rich that had nothing to do with money. I was free. Completely, strategically, irrevocably free. And that was worth more than any house they'd tried to steal. 6 months after the trial, I stood in my new Denver office, unpacking the last box of personal items. The mountain view from the window still took my breath away. Dr. Elizabeth Sinclair, the nameplate read, Department Head Pediatric Intensive Care. "Knock, knock," a familiar voice called. Daniel stood in my doorway looking uncertain and significantly humbled. "Hi, Robin," or should I say, Dr. Sinclair. "Daniel." I kept my voice neutral. "How did you find me?" Sarah told me. After much convincing and promises of good behavior, he shifted awkwardly. "I'm in town for a medical conference. Hoped we could talk." "Come in." I gestured to a chair, maintaining professional distance. "You have 10 minutes. He sat clearly, struggling for words. "I owe you an apology. A real one. Not the weak attempts I sent through texts you rightfully ignored." "Go on." "I failed you completely. When you needed support, I chose to believe lies over evidence. I let Jake manipulate me. Let your parents convince me you were unstable. I became another weapon they used against you." "Yes, you did." I've been in therapy since the trial, trying to understand how I fell for it so completely. My therapist says I have issues with authority figures, tendency to believe whoever seems most confident rather than who's actually truthful. That's your journey to take. Why tell me? Because you deserved better. And because I wanted you to know that your strength in facing them alone inspired me to face my own weaknesses. I'm not asking for forgiveness or another chance. Just wanted to acknowledge the harm I caused. I studied him, seeing genuine remorse but feeling no stirring of old emotion. I appreciate the apology, and I'm glad you're working on yourself. But Daniel, you showed me who you were under pressure. That's valuable information I won't forget. He nodded, accepting the finality. For what it's worth, you look happy. Really happy. Not the careful happiness you wore before, but something real. I am. Turns out losing everything I thought mattered helped me find what actually does. After he left, I returned to unpacking. A photo of Thomas made me pause. He'd passed 2 months ago, surrounded by chosen family, finally at peace. His last words to me, "You showed them strength they couldn't break. Now show yourself the gentleness you deserve." My phone rang, Sarah checking in as she did every few days. "How was the Daniel encounter?" she asked, having clearly orchestrated it. "Closure-ish." He apologized. I accepted it without absolving him. We're done. "And how do you feel?" "Free. Not angry anymore, just distant. Like he's someone I knew in another life." Because he is. Robin Parker's ex-boyfriend visited. Dr. Sinclair has different standards. The truth of that statement resonated. Robin Parker had accepted crumbs of conditional love, grateful for any affection. Dr. Elizabeth Sinclair expected partnership loyalty and unwavering support. The bar had risen with my self-worth. "Any word from the prison contingent?" Sarah asked. "Mom sends letters weekly. Still playing victim, still blaming me for destroying the family. I return them unopened." Jake, radio silence since my email about the charity. Probably plotting revenge he'll never be able to execute. And Margaret, thriving actually. The facility says she's clearer than she's been in years. Writes me real letters now full of memories and apologies and plans for the time she has left. We video chat Sundays. That's beautiful, the real relationship you always wanted. Better late than never. She's even helping with the foundation, sharing her story to help other elderly victims recognize the signs of family exploitation. A knock interrupted. My new colleague, Dr. James Harrison, no relation to the criminal lawyer, peered in. "Elizabeth ready for the department meeting." "Senadia contraindin cheat." 5 minutes. I promised then to Sarah, "Got to go. New life calling." "Love you, Robin." "Sorry, Elizabeth, still adjusting." Robin's not gone, just integrated. She's the survivor who got us here. Elizabeth is who she became. The department meeting introduced me to my new team. 15 dedicated professionals who knew nothing of Parker family crimes, who judged me solely on my skills and leadership. The fresh start I'd craved but never thought possible. Dr. Sinclair comes to us from Children's Memorial with exceptional recommendations, the Chief of Staff announced. Her innovative approaches to pediatric trauma care have already garnered national attention. I smiled, remembering how Jake tried to destroy that career. Now I was published, respected, and leading a cutting-edge department. The best revenge truly was massive success. After work, I drove to my new home. Smaller than the Victorian, but perfectly sized for my needs. A garden bloomed in the backyard, tended with care but not obsession. Inside, photos lined the mantel. Sarah, Thomas, Amanda, Beth, Emma, Jennifer. My chosen family scattered geographically but united in loyalty. The doorbell rang. My neighbor Maria stood with a covered dish. "Thought you might enjoy some homemade tamales," she offered. My grandmother's recipe. I invited her in, sharing tea and conversation. Maria knew nothing of my past beyond complicated family situation. She liked me for my gardening tips and hospital stories, for sharing books and watching her kids in emergencies. Normal, healthy, neighborly connection. "You're different from when you first moved in," she observed. "More settled, like you finally believe you're staying." I am staying. Took a while to trust it, but this is home now. After she left, I video called Margaret for our weekly check-in. She looked healthier, eyes bright and clear. "I've been thinking about the house," she said without preamble. My house, the estate. When I'm gone, I want you to sell it. Use the money for your foundation. That place has too much painful history. Let it fund healing instead." "Are you sure it's been in the family for generations?" "Exactly why it needs to go. Generations of secrets and schemes. Time to break the pattern completely." We talked for an hour about memories both bitter and sweet. She shared stories of her own struggles with family expectations, revealing how the cycle of manipulation stretched back decades, each generation teaching the next that love meant control, support meant debt, family meant compliance. "You broke the chain," she said proudly, "at tremendous cost, but you broke it. The Parker line ends with redemption instead of repetition." That night, I sat on my deck watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. My phone showed messages from my New Life colleagues planning weekend hikes, patients' families sending updates, friends from support groups sharing victories. No manipulation, no calculations, no threats disguised as love, just genuine human connection based on mutual respect and shared experiences. The family I'd lost would have called this small. No mansion-sized house, no influential name, no inherited wealth to leverage. But they'd never understood that their version of more was actually less. Less authentic, less peaceful, less genuinely fulfilling. I'd traded quantity for quality, surface for depth, performance for truth, and in that exchange discovered wealth they'd never comprehend, the richness of being fully myself without fear of punishment. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Harrison Wells had died in prison heart attack during an appeal hearing. I felt nothing but distant acknowledgement, another ghost from the past unable to haunt my future. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, difficult cases at the hospital, foundation paperwork, the ongoing work of building life after trauma. But tonight, surrounded by the life I'd built on honest foundations, I felt the kind of success that couldn't be stolen, manipulated, or destroyed. The Parker family had taught me to fight. Survival had taught me to plan. But freedom was teaching me to live. And for the first time in 33 years, I was truly, completely authentically living. 2 years later, I stood before 300 wedding guests in a Colorado mountain meadow wearing my grandmother's pearl necklace, one of the few Parker heirlooms I'd kept. Sarah stood beside me as maid of honor while Beth and Emma flanked her as bridesmaids. Amanda sat in the front row tissues, ready next to Margaret in her wheelchair, beaming with joy. The groom wasn't Daniel or any connection to my past. Dr. Marcus Chen, no relation to Amanda, had entered my life through the most ordinary circumstances. A joint pediatric cardiology consultation that turned into coffee discussions about treatment protocols, then dinners about everything else. "I never thought I'd do this," I whispered to Sarah as the music began. "Marry a cardiologist. Yeah, the surgeon rivalry is real," she teased. "Trust someone enough to marry them," I corrected. After everything you learn to recognize real love, that's the ultimate victory." Marcus waited at the altar, his face radiating the steady warmth that had slowly melted my defensive walls. He knew my whole story, had read the news coverage before our first date, and chose to see strength where others saw scandal. "Ready?" Margaret asked, gripping my hand from her wheelchair. She'd insisted on giving me away, saying it was her privilege to hand me to a family that would truly cherish me. "Ready," I confirmed, and we began our journey down the aisle. The ceremony was simple, our vows personal. Marcus promised to be my anchor without weighing me down. I promised to trust him with my whole heart while maintaining my hard-won independence. We acknowledged our pasts, his struggles with perfectionism, my battles with betrayal, and committed to building something new together. "I choose you," Marcus said, eyes locked on mine. "Not despite your history, but because of how you transformed it. You showed me that the deepest wounds can become the greatest strengths." "I choose you," I replied, for seeing me clearly and loving me anyway, for proving that healthy love supports without controlling, protects without imprisoning. As we kissed, sealing our union, I caught sight of the empty chairs we'd included in the ceremony. Not for the family in prison, but for Thomas and Carl, whose courage made this moment possible. Their presence felt real in the mountain breeze. The reception bustled with genuine celebration. My new hospital family mingled with the survivors of Parker family crimes. Former patients I'd saved danced with current colleagues. The Carl Thomas Foundation board members toasted our happiness while planning the next fundraiser. Margaret pulled me aside during a quiet moment. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice stronger than her frail body suggested. "I'm dying. The doctors give me weeks, maybe a month." I knelt beside her chair, taking her weathered hands. "Grandma." "No tears. Not today. I've lived long enough to see you truly happy, to watch the family curse break. That's more than I dared hope for after everything I enabled." "You were a victim too." "Perhaps, but I was also complicit through willful blindness. You, my dear, were neither. You were the mirror that showed us our ugliness and the light that offered redemption to those willing to see it." "Jake still writes from prison," I admitted, demanding money, threatening lawsuits, claiming I destroyed his life. "Jake destroyed his own life, as did your parents. They had every opportunity to choose differently." She squeezed my hands. "But you need to know something. I've been visiting them." I pulled back, shocked. "What?" "Monthly. Not to reconcile, but to bear witness. Your mother still plays victim. Your father still schemes. But Jake, something's changing in Jake." "I doubt that." "The last visit, he asked about you. Not for money or revenge. He wanted to know if you were happy. When I said yes, he said good and walked away. I think prison is finally teaching him what family couldn't." "Or he's planning another con." "Maybe, but maybe not. People can change Robin. Not often, not easily, but sometimes tragedy creates space for transformation. You're living proof." Marcus found us gently reminding me we had toasts to hear. The speeches ranged from hilarious Sarah's account of my first attempt at dating post-trial to touching Beth, describing how my courage inspired her own healing. Then Jennifer stood, unexpected and nervous. 2 years ago, I was married to a criminal and too scared to speak up. Watching Robin fight her entire family for truth changed my life. Because of her example, I found my voice protected my children and rebuilt on honest ground. Today, I run a support group for spouses of white-collar criminals. Robin's courage created ripples that became waves. Thank you for showing us that losing everything can be the beginning of finding yourself. As the evening progressed, I found myself observing the celebration with anthropologist eyes. This was what healthy family looked like: chosen connections, mutual support, joy without calculation. No one here would drug me for inheritance or destroy my career for property. They celebrated my success as their own offered help without keeping score. "Penny for your thoughts?" Marcus asked, spinning me on the dance floor. Just realizing how different this is from Parker family gatherings. No hidden agendas, no whispered schemes, no conditional affection. Must be strange. Strange and wonderful. Like learning a new language where "I love you" doesn't translate to "you owe me." He pulled me closer. In this language, it just means "I love you." Simple, clean, honest. I'm still learning, but I like the vocabulary so far. As midnight approached, Margaret insisted on making one final toast. Her voice, though weak, carried across the reception. To broken chains and new beginnings. To the courage to speak truth when lies feel safer. To my granddaughter who lost a toxic family and built a real one. May your story inspire others to choose integrity over ease, truth over tradition. And may the Parker name be remembered not for its crimes, but for the woman who refused to let them define her. We raised our glasses to transformation and redemption, to the family we choose over the family we're given. Later, as Marcus and I prepared to leave for our honeymoon, I found a moment alone with the memorial table. Thomas's photo smiled back at me, that knowing look that saw through pretense to truth. "We did it," I whispered. "We really did it." Sarah appeared beside me. "He'd be so proud. You didn't just survive them, Robin. You transcended them. By losing everything I thought mattered. By discovering what actually does. That's the real lesson, isn't it? They tried to teach you that family meant obligation debt performance, but you learned it means choice, support freedom." I thought about Jake in his cell, my parents in their separate prisons, the cousins and aunts and uncles scattered by scandal. Then I looked around the reception at faces glowing with genuine affection, lives touched and transformed by shared truth. "You know what the strangest part is?" I said. "I'm grateful, not for their crimes or cruelty, but for the unwitting gift they gave me. They showed me exactly what I didn't want to be, which clarified who I could become. That's very Zen of you. That's very therapy of me, years of it. Learning to separate their actions from my worth, their choices from my identity." I touched Thomas's photo one last time, but mostly learning that the best revenge isn't punishment or success or vindication. It's building something so authentic and healthy that their toxicity simply has no place to root. Marcus appeared in the doorway, my coat in hand. "Ready for our next adventure, Dr. Sinclair Chen." I took his hand, feeling the solid weight of the wedding ring still foreign on my finger. "Ready." As we drove away into the Colorado night, the mountains standing sentinel against stars, I reflected on the journey from that shocking dinner announcement to this moment of profound peace. Jake had demanded my house. My family had tried to steal my sanity, career, and freedom. They'd marshaled every weapon in their arsenal to force compliance. Instead, they'd freed me. Their betrayal burned away illusions. Their cruelty clarified my values. Their crimes catalyzed my transformation. In trying to destroy me, they'd forged something unbreakable. The Parker family legacy wasn't wealth or reputation anymore. It was a cautionary tale, a federal investigation, and broken lives in prison cells. But from those ashes rose the Carl Thomas Foundation, helping hundreds escape similar situations. My story, shared in support groups and legal seminars, had become a roadmap for other victims finding their way to freedom. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "How sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that happens for you. How losing a toxic family made space for a real one. How their attempts to break me only revealed I was already whole. That's beautiful and true. Think our kids will believe it when we tell them about the aunt and uncle in prison, the grandparents they'll never meet. We'll tell them the truth. That family isn't about blood, but about behavior. That love isn't obligation, but choice. That sometimes walking away is the highest form of self-respect." He smiled. "Besides, they'll have Sarah as an Aunt Amanda, as honorary grandmother, and Margaret's memory as a guide. They'll know real family." I settled back into the seat, watching the highway unfold toward our future. The woman who'd sat frozen at that dinner table, shocked by Jake's announcement, felt like a stranger now. She'd been so concerned with keeping peace, maintaining appearances, earning love that was always conditional. This woman, Dr. Elizabeth Sinclair Chen, knew her worth wasn't negotiable, knew that family meant the people who stood with you in courtrooms and hospital rooms, who celebrated your victories without calculating their percentage, who loved you not for what you could provide, but for who you chose to be. "I love you," I told Marcus, meaning it with the simple clarity he'd taught me. "I love you too," he replied. No conditions, no calculations, no contracts, just love. As we drove toward our honeymoon and the life we'd build together, I sent up a silent thank you to the universe, not for the pain that I wouldn't wish on anyone, but for the growth it demanded, the strength it revealed, the clarity it provided. The Parker family had taught me that everything had a price, everyone had an angle, and love was a transaction to be negotiated. They were wrong. Love was a gift freely given. Family was a choice daily made. And the price of truth, though steep, was always worth paying. That was my story, my lesson, my liberation. And as the mountains gave way to plains and our new life beckoned ahead, I knew with bone-deep certainty that the best chapters were yet to be written. Not as Robin Parker, the victim who escaped, but as Elizabeth Sinclair Chen, the woman who chose to thrive. The Parker family crime saga was over. My real story had just begun. Thank you for joining me on this journey from betrayal to triumph. If you've faced similar family challenges, remember choosing yourself isn't selfish when the alternative is destruction. Blood makes you related, but behavior makes you family. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and personal truth? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing for more content about resilience, redemption, and the families we choose. And if you know someone struggling with toxic family dynamics, share this story. Sometimes seeing others break free gives us permission to save ourselves. Until next time, remember you deserve love without conditions, support without manipulation, and family that celebrates your success rather than schemes to steal it. Stay strong, stay true, and never apologize for protecting your peace.